on. It's undisciplined. You look like, at least Nick Sorensen looks like he's head over heels. He has no idea what's going on half the time. You're not getting pressure on Stafford. When you get pressure, you're not bringing him down a handful of times. Like, this looks like what they looked like last year when they lost 3 games in a row. Yep. And they've lost 2 games in a row. When you get to the quarterback, sack the quarterback. And I'm sorry, without Christian McCaffrey, that sucks. That's the reality you live in. No Deebo Samuel, no George Kittle. Yeah, you don't have all your weapons at your disposal. But Juwan Jennings caught 11 balls today for 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. Your supposed near MVP winning quarterback was really good today, and you can't bring it home? You get beat on the road in a situation that is set up to have the perfect get-right game after losing in somewhat humiliating fashion against the Vikings last week, who looked pretty darn good this week, mind you, but still, you let Matthew Stafford get hot at the end of the first half, and he never cooled off. You had no answer for a 36-year-old quarterback, however old he is, who had no weapons. No weapons. And you got beat. Embarrassing. Embarrassing today.
Yep, you guys are right. Embarrassing. It's the right word for this performance. It was an absolutely pitiful performance in the second half, and the 49ers they look like a team that I didn't even recognize. You guys talked about how this team has had so many memorable performances, and it's them controlling second halves, and this was the complete opposite of that. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. One sec, Kyle. We're just getting going. We want to hear from you guys all afternoon. We'll go as long as you guys want to, so give us a call. Line them up. What's your frustration with this 49er performance? 888-957-9570. It's Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling with you, because, Kyle, there is plenty to be upset about. This is not just a one player or one possession or one moment here or there. This goes around for almost everybody not named Juwan Jennings, maybe Brock Purdy. Everybody else deserves a little bit of blame for what happened today.
What happened today, guys, is what would have happened last week had Fred Warner not been Superman.
Against a much worse team today.
Yes, against a way worse team. And that's the concern. It's week 3. Are the 49ers going to automatically not go to the Super Bowl because they lost in week 3? No. Is the season over? No. But when you start looking at trends and what this team is going to look like in 3, 4, 5 weeks, it doesn't look good on that side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. And we're so used to this being a defense-first team. And when Christian McCaffrey goes down and then they're dealing with all their injury stuff, you're going, okay, well, hey, their defense is still going to be there. Their defense is still going to lock in. And they just haven't. And you saw it last week. Fred Warner gets the interception. He punches the ball out at the goal line on Aaron Jones. Get a couple of takeaways. They score off those takeaways. And wow, look at the Niners. This week, there wasn't that. They didn't have the takeaways. And when they didn't get that, they didn't get stops. They didn't get them late in the game. You have Travarius Ward getting cooked by Tutu Atwell on the deep shot late in the game. The punt coverage was abysmal on that final punt.
That's the last thing you can have in that moment.
You cannot kick it out of bounds. Launch it out of the back of the end zone. Do literally anything other than let him have the ball at the freaking 50. It's just...
Once that happens, Matt Stafford's getting 15 yards at
easy
least.
Work. That's easy work.
No doubt.
Yeah, because I don't know about you guys, but when they get the ball at the 50, I had zero confidence that the Niners could come up with a stop.
No, same. Game was over.
Game was done.
Yeah.
And you can't have that. With the defense with this many good players on it, that's embarrassing. You can't have that.
I mean, you can argue the minute Jake Moody missed that field goal, it was like,
yep,
this is not going to go how we like. And it's not a shot at Jake Moody, although make your field goal, my friend. Kyle Shanahan said, this is the most comfortable I felt with the kicker, 50-plus yards. Well, 55 with the game on the line to ice the game to, if anything, if they score a field goal, well, the game's tied. We're going to overtime right now. You miss it. This is a almost complete failure in every single facet. The edge rushers aren't getting pressure. They're terrible at run defense. Isaac Yadam's getting cooked by backups on backups on backups. Yep. He was getting cooked against Josh Naylor or Jalen Naylor last week and Brandon Powell. Now he's getting cooked against, I don't even know who else plays for the Rams outside of Atwell and Whittington. That's all I know. I mean, they didn't have their 2 top wide receivers, their starting tight end, 3 offensive linemen out. John Johnson, their safety, he's not playing. And it looked like almost everybody else was invisible but Juwan Jennings and Brock Purdy, who, give Brock Purdy credit, when everyone's covered, he's running around for 35 seconds and 110 yards himself trying to find 3 yards to give Jake Moody a field goal chance, and they still can't win this game. When your quarterback is making plays like an MVP should, and you still can't win, something is wrong with the San Francisco 49ers. And it's not just one thing. It is many, many things.
Yep. Yeah, you got 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns from Juwan Jennings. You got 22 for 30 for Brock Purdy, 292, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, did not turn the ball over. There was a moment where you thought maybe he fumbled on a quarterback sneak, but he was down. You get those performances on offense, and you're the San Francisco 49ers and what you're talking about, you shouldn't lose to anybody, let alone to this team, which was on the doorstep of having their season end in week 3 because they're down so many players, because they're about to fall to 0-3 on the year. And, part of this maybe is the Rams fighting for their lives. You don't really get that generally in week number 3, but that's no excuse for the 49ers. You wasted an all-time performance by Juwan Jennings, by far the best game of Brock Purdy's season, one of the better games he's played last year included. You waste that and lose to this team, a team that you have historically dominated in the regular season at the least, and this is by far the most lopsided the matchup has been in quite a while because the Rams are down every single one of their key players other than Matt Stafford. It is absolutely inexcusable for this team to lose this game. You got so many things to go your way, and you let Kyren Williams running behind a bunch of nobodies get 5, 6, 7 yards a pop every single time in the second half, and you couldn't stop it. And then you let Tutu Atwell run past you down the sideline when the only thing you can't do is let someone go over the top against you. There was like 10 different moments to point to where you say, that was a back-breaking mistake. That was a back-breaking mistake. That was a back-breaking mistake. And what's even more frustrating is the only way the Niners lose this game if all 10 of those back-breaking mistakes happen. And guess what? All 10 of those back-breaking mistakes happened. It was an absolutely incredible collapse to watch. Not that I'm happy about it, but watching it from afar, just seeing this turn the way it did, absolutely insane. Like watching a car crash. You can't look away from it. It was wild.
It's like a slow motion train wreck because you could see it happening the whole way.
Yeah.
Sterling, you said it.
You could feel it coming.
When they settle for the 55-yard field goal, we're sitting in here and we're going, hey, if he misses this, it's going to be a problem. Well, they're going to get great field position if he misses. And then
to Sterling's point, this is the most comfortable Shanahan's ever been with a field goal kicker. If he was left less comfortable, like maybe Robbie Gould, who wasn't so sure about the range, he would have punted that, and maybe you down him inside the 10, and maybe you end up winning the game anyway. You never really know.
Yeah.
But
and this is where I don't want to. I really think the defensive struggles are kind of the focus for me. And for the most part, I thought Brock Purdy was very good today. One of the interesting things, though, or one of the concerning things, though, and I think this is the product of no Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel, no George Kittle, is he looked so hesitant at times to push the ball down the field. And all those plays where he's scrambling around, I don't think that's players not necessarily being open. I think that's Brock Purdy not being comfortable airing it out to Brandon Ayuk. He threw a dot to Ronnie Bell on their last offensive drive.
And that was the game.
That was ball game, and Ronnie Bell drops it. He's got to go. He really does. If you're not pulling that down,
receiver on the roster.
Terrace Marshall can catch that.
That was one of
I'm
two
so
drops.
Confident Terrace Marshall. Yeah, and it wasn't like
he was targeted 3 times, 1 catch, 2 drops.
I mean, come on, man.
And the second one
was the ball game.
Yeah, would have ended the game.
Purdy throws
and it's not
dime.
new.
No.
He's been doing it in training camp for 2 years. Oh, he can block. He can block. I'm sorry. You're a wide receiver. You're paid to catch the ball.
Yeah.
Where's Jacob Cowling? I get no Debo and Pearsall has his thing. I get that. You ain't got nobody else? I mean, put Braden Willis out there for all I care, man. He'll at least catch the ball sometimes. He'll catch it 2 out of 3 times, not 1 out of 3 times. Like, my goodness. Like, I get the personnel isn't exactly there for Brock Purdy. He doesn't have his stars out there, but you're keeping guys that are actively anchoring your roster down. And today it cost him a game.
Yeah. Niners blow a 10-point fourth quarter lead on the road. Although, was it really on the road? It was like 65% red in SoFi. The Niners ultimately, basically, they blew a 10-point lead at home in the fourth quarter to the Los Angeles Rams. The final score is 27-24, and it's overtime here on 95.7 The Game with Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, and Sterling Bennett. We're with you guys all afternoon into the evening long here on this Sunday. Let out your frustrations. There's plenty of frustration to go around, and there's so many reasons to be upset if you're a 49er fan. Let's kick things off by heading out to the phone lines. The Observer joins us from Austin, Texas. What's up, The Observer? You're on OT after a rough Niners loss. How you doing?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to Kyle Shanahan's coaching. I think it takes a certain type of player in order to execute his game plans, both offensively and defensively. And as a result of that, he leans towards people who are more cerebral that can carry out his game plan, but lack athleticism. And my observation is, just from afar, is that I find the 49ers old, slow, and unathletic.
Yeah, the Observer, appreciate the call. Yeah, go ahead.
I could not agree more with the Observer. One of my biggest gripes with Kyle Shanahan is we watched Andy Reid. Let's rewind real quick.
Yeah.
2022, when Andy Reid and the Chiefs came to Levi Stadium, and Mecole Hardman cooks the 49ers. End arounds and jet sweeps and all this crazy stuff because Andy Reid recognizes that Mecole Hardman was faster than everybody on the field and went, hey, we're going to design ways. Is he an awesome receiver? No, but we're going to design ways, creative ways to get the ball in his hands, and we're going to let him run. On the other sideline is a player like Danny Gray, who, as a rookie in 2022, had one catch. And there's no designs to just get Danny Gray the football and let him be fast. It's, oh, hey, he doesn't line up within the exact quarter yard that I need him to line up. Oh, and when he runs that route, he cuts it off at a 47-degree angle instead of 45, and we just can't have that. That's insane.
And he missed this one block one time.
Oh, and dude, you don't even get me started about the block he missed. No, and this isn't, and I caution myself with this because I think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach. I think that he is the guy. I think he's going to win Super Bowl or Super Bowls as a head coach. I think he's there. But I think something that he has to get out of his way is exactly what the Observer is talking about, is let your athletes cook a little bit. And I think that is a little bit of a problem when we talk about the Niners not getting separation and all these failed draft picks. And it's like, man, maybe if you just get the ball in their hands and get creative with it, instead of just relying on exactly, okay, I needed this play to be exactly executed at this very precise way. No, man, let your dudes go play football.
Well, I think that goes back to Kyle Shanahan. In his mind, it's play calling over the players. Mm-hmm. If my play calling is you got to trust what I'm going to call every single play. If you run exactly what I tell you, we're going to win. And they win a lot. And they're a darn good team. And this year, despite being 1-2, they can still be a darn good team. But take what you just said, Kyle, today. Danny Gray, who doesn't play for us anymore, doesn't play in San Francisco. Jacob Cowing's out there. He's got 4.3 speed. And I don't know if that's the determining factor in this game, getting him some touches. We have no idea. There's a lot of things that went wrong today. But my goodness, end arounds, jet sweeps, get something going on with some speed. I'm sorry, the Rams defense, for as, I guess, mediocre as it may be, for as bad as their secondary is, it's hard to catch a guy, no matter how fast you are, when you run 4.3. Mm-hmm. There is a way to, especially when you don't have Christian McCaffrey and you don't have Debo and you don't have your dynamic athletes that can change a game with one single touch, manufacture something. Even if it doesn't work, you keep the opposing defense honest. It's almost the exact same thing as taking deep shots early in the game. Take a deep shot early. Keep Tre'Davious White with a bum leg. Keep him honest. We're going to test you all day, Tre'Davious. And guess what? It worked early in this one. Never happened again. Never happened again. Yep. Ayuk was a non-factor come the second half. There was no, I don't want to say creativity, but in the fourth quarter, late in the third quarter, it was Brock, 5 wide, drop back, make something happen. And he did for a lot of it, but even the greatest quarterbacks need some help sometimes. And when you have a bunch of cones out there, if you will, just sitting around dropping the football, it's not going to help anybody.
Yeah, and I think we can also extend this, that our point the caller made, the Observer, talking about speed and athleticism and just getting great athletes the ball. I can also extend that to the defensive side of the football. The 49ers don't have a ton of freak athletes defensively, and I don't mean to just single out the one guy who's a stopgap until Drake Greenlaw gets healthy again. And the defense, the stars need to share a brunt of the blame for how they have performed through 2 weeks. Nick Bosa, I'm looking at you. Fred Warner, obviously you've been phenomenal all season, but he's going to shoulder some of the blame. Mooney Ward quietly has been bad through 3 weeks of the season. Yeah. But if we're talking about speed and athleticism, the opponents, doesn't matter who they are, they're looking at Devondre Campbell every single snap and saying that's barbecue chicken. Yep. I mean, every single time. You talk about lack of speed and athleticism, and again, I don't mean to pick on the one guy who's not even supposed to be starting for this team, but Devondre Campbell, he is that poster boy for lack of speed and athleticism, especially when you compare it to what the guy he's starting for. Dre Greenlaw, one of the most athletic, quickest linebackers out there, alongside Fred Warner. That is a point where I look at the point that our caller made, the observer. You look at it on defense, and that's partly how the Rams were able to win this game, because they just were running past the guys that Niners were checking them with.
How many positive plays for the Rams today did we point out number 59 for the Niners? Either 3 steps late or getting cooked on a block. And here's the thing with that, Grandy. You said he's not supposed to start for this team, and I totally get what you mean. Like, Dre Greenlaw's supposed to be the guy. But the Niners knew they weren't going to have Dre Greenlaw. They seeked out Devondre Campbell, and then he was just the dude throughout camp. They never gave Curtis Robinson never got a shot to start. Jalen Graham, D. Winters, Tatum Bethune. None of these guys got a shot to start alongside Fred Warner. They said, sign, seal, delivered, Devondre Campbell. He's the guy. He's the will linebacker. He's on the field for 3 downs. He's it. And there's no competition. And that's insane. And now you see why. This team, this defense that was so good, not just because of their pass rush, but because of how they controlled the second level. They were so good at coverage in the second level, where those easy throws that Matthew Stafford was just feasting on today. Because if you look at Stafford's numbers, they're not great.
16 for 25, 221 in the touchdown.
Less than 7 yards per attempt. Those are not awesome numbers. But everything was so easy, and there were yards after catch available because they don't have that speed and athleticism in the second level. And I'm shocked that they went with a player like Devondre Campbell, who's in his 30s and who is clearly not the player he was when he was an All-Pro in 2021, and that they didn't give one of their more athletic younger guys a shot. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those guys either rotating in or starting at some point in Campbell's spot, because they need it so bad.
Campbell wasn't even their first choice. They signed Michael Kendricks, and he said, nope, I'm going to Dallas. They didn't even want Campbell at first.
Yikes.
And they won't even give a younger guy a chance. Now, I get it. You're kind of hamstrung. Got to put a vet in there and figure things out. But unfortunately, this year, in previous years, it was okay. They don't have a number 2 outside cornerback. That's the main detriment of this team, okay? Maybe they don't have another edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa. They have some dogs, but they don't have that one guy. This year, it's Floyd's not getting pressure. Hargrave's inconsistent. The run defense is bad. Linebacker number 2 can't cover, nor can he tackle. Outside cornerback number 2 can't cover a dime. What's going on out there? There are so many holes on this defense. And I go back to week 1 against the Jets. We all talked about, man, this defense looks stout. It looks strong. The play calling was good. It was a garbage time touchdown, 12 points. Man, what a statement win for San Francisco. The last 2 statements they've had is, we have so many holes, we can't just sign one guy. One guy's not going to save this defense. You have to have Renardo Green out there, Malik Mustafa, Hufanga, whoever else you can plug in some places. You need all 3 of those linebackers to help at this point. The offense has holes. The offensive line, it was better today, but it should have been against a pretty bad pass rush of the Rams. But Ayuk's not involved in the offense. This team has so many holes that, I'm sorry, you deserve to be 1-2. Should you be? Probably not. You should have won this game pretty handily. You're up 14-0 in the first quarter of this one. It was pretty obvious, hey, this game could be a rout. I talked to my wife and I said, hey, honey, this one might get ugly. We might go on a little earlier today.
Well, it got ugly.
I sat here and all she heard were the expletives coming out of the office saying, what's going on, honey? I was like, don't talk to me. I am in distress. What's going on? Because San Francisco can't fill the holes they currently have, and it's cost them 2 games in a row.
Yeah, it was 14-0 after the 49ers' first 2 drives, 2 touchdowns to Juwan Jennings, and the defense was getting the Rams off the field quickly on the other side. So 14-0. It was 21-7. That was in the third quarter on the 31-yard touchdown from Brock Purdy to Juwan Jennings. And at that point, you're thinking, oh my God, Juwan Jennings is going to make a run for NFC Offensive Player of the Week, and the Niners are going to embarrass the Rams. This is going to be awesome. Juwan kept it up. They didn't get into the end zone again. The Niners did not score another touchdown after that, but they still led by 10 with 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, 24-14, and then a field goal for the Rams, a touchdown for the Rams, and a field goal for the Rams. Mixed in there in between all of those scores were terrible mistakes by the 49ers, and they paid the ultimate price in this one as they fall by a score of 27-24 on the road down in LA against the Rams, a Rams team that was fighting for their lives. They were in danger of falling to 0-3. They knock off the Niners. Now both the Niners and the Rams are 1-2. Seattle, meanwhile, atop the NFC West, they dominated the Tua-less Dolphins in Seattle. So the Seahawks guys, they're 3-0. The 49ers are 1-2. After week 3, who had this on their bingo card? After week 3, the Niners 2 games out of the NFC West. That is not something I was expecting to say today.
You know the worst part is there's nothing that makes me think like, oh yeah, this is going to get better soon. Christian McCaffrey's not coming back anytime soon.
What again?
Deebo Samuel's out again.
The offense wasn't really the problem today. It was the defense, and the defense is relatively whole.
Right, and that's the bigger issue. Is you have all this injury stuff on offense, okay, but they seemed like they're going to be okay on that front. Jennings was really good. Brock Purdy was really good today. Okay, you feel good about that. But this was going to be their easiest game for a while. Easiest, quote unquote, every game in the NFL is hard.
Yeah.
But this version of the Rams is not good. That was not a super talented team. And now you got to go play New England, who may or may not be good. I'm not totally sure what to think about New England, but they just played Thursday. So they're going to have the rest advantage there. Then you got a division game against the Cardinals. The Cardinals lost to the Lions today, but they've looked good to start the season.
They put 40 on the Rams.
Yeah, they hung. Right.
The game was over against this team in the first quarter when the Cardinals played them.
Yeah. And then you got to go to Seattle for a short week in week 6. Like, yikes, dude. They've got to figure this stuff out. They've got to figure it out quick because they're already 2 games back. And I don't see the schedule getting easier.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, we got to take a quick break. The 49ers fall to the Rams. 27-24 is the final. We got full phone lines. We're coming to you guys next. Brian and George and Diego and Dave, I see all of you. We're coming to you on the other side as we continue on overtime. We're just getting started. If you hang out on hold, we will get to you. We're on as long as you want to talk to us here on this Sunday afternoon on 95.7 The Game. It's Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling with you. More overtime after the Niners fall in LA coming up next here on 95.7 The Game.
At Shane Company, our engagement rings are the perfect blend of design.
Twitch, and YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Now back to the kickoff show on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back to Overtime. It's Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett with you. The 49ers fell to the Rams today, 27-24. The final score, the Niners led by 14 at multiple points in this game. They led by 10 with 11 minutes and 57 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. In fact, we could go all the way down to about 6 minutes and 20 seconds left. The Niners led by 10. The Rams got a field goal with about 6 minutes to go in the game. Then they got a stop. They get the ball back. It was a deep shot down the right side, the 2-2 Atwell, all the way down to the 5-yard line. At that point, the 49ers suddenly thinking, oh my God, we got to conserve clock, because if the Rams score, they might ultimately go for 2 and the win in regulation. Little did we know, they still won in regulation, even though they didn't go for 2 on that touchdown that tied the game, because they got a quick stop. The Niners punted away, did not cover the punt returner, a rookie for the Rams, who returns it all the way back to near midfield. And then Matthew Stafford does what he does best, picks apart the Niner defense, gets them into field goal range. They kill clock. They kick a field goal essentially to walk off. The Niners got to play a lateral game at the very, very end, but came nowhere near getting into the end zone and winning, and the Niners fall 27-24. They're now 1-2 on the season, and after 3 weeks, they're 2 games out of the lead in the NFC West. I know it's so early to be talking about playoff positioning and jockeying, but you remember how it went last year, guys. The 49ers, who were the 1 seed and were so good for the vast majority of the season, even then, when they were as good as they were last year, they needed help to get the 1 seed. Remember the Cardinals going into Philadelphia and knocking off the Eagles to help you get the 1 seed? It's never too early to be frustrated about a loss and what it might mean for your postseason positioning. The Niners, though, might have bigger concerns than that, because through 2 weeks, they do not look much like a playoff team.
That's where I'm going 1 seed. Can they make the postseason?
Can
first?
they win the division?
Can they do any of that? Like that? But that's kind of where things are at. Here, I'm trying to decide. I need you guys to help me out here. I'm so sick of looking at this box score. Because everything in this box score says the 49ers should have won.
Yeah.
And I can't decide if that's encouraging or not.
Total yards, 425 to 296 in favor of the Niners.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, 73.3% completion rate. He averaged 9.7 yards per attempt. Only took 1 sack. He had 3 touchdowns. Jordan Mason, 77 yards. He went 4.1 a pop. You got Jawan Jennings with $175 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, how did this happen?
It's a good question.
And so I can't determine if it's like, man, the Niners played that well and still lost. That's brutal. Or if it's, hey, you know what? Football, they had a missed field goal, they had a fumble, like little things happen, and then the game got away from them. They wind up losing. The fake punt, of course, was in there. I don't think we mentioned that. I don't think we mentioned that yet. That drive, going into that drive where the Rams had the fake punt, they had 10 plays in their first 2 drives, and it was going to be another short drive. And then the fake punt happens. They went on a 16-play touchdown drive.
Yeah, that was the end of the first half, basically.
I've decided it's bad.
I'm with you. It is bad. Matthew Stafford hadn't completed a pass in the game until that drive.
Come on.
Yeah. It's almost like debating, we were almost there. We're so close. A few more tweaks and we'll actually win some games. Or it's like, oh my goodness, are we actually this bad? Like, I hate to say it's reality, but you just lost to the Rams who didn't have 9 starters. And those starters weren't just, a guard, they were a center. They have a rookie center playing who was taking it to Hargrave a lot today, and Malik Collins. And they didn't have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. You tell any fan, Niner fan or not, tell a Rams fan, you're not going to have Cooper Kupp, you're not going to have Puka Nacua, you're not going to have 9 starters, and you're playing San Francisco. They're going to think we're going to lose that game by 20. And they won the game by 3. They're going to say, what happened? San Francisco played down to their opponent. Kyle Shanahan said in the postgame that we had ample opportunity to win this game and not just win, run away with it. And it was almost like you're playing tag with your friends. You're just so close to getting away, and they get that shirt tail, and they get you, and they go, tag, you're it. And you're like, wait, what just happened? How'd you get me? Every time the San Francisco 49ers scored a point in this game, it was like, oh, here we go. gonna run away with this one. And the Rams just kept standing right behind him. They were right there, just hanging around until San Francisco blinked. And unfortunately, they blinked a lot in this game, enough for a terrible, terrible Rams team to come back and win.
Ugh.
Yep, and they lose by a final score 27-24. The Rams get their first win of the year. The 49ers lose their second in a row. Both these teams are 1-2. Top of the NFC West is the Seahawks at 2-0. The Cardinals also lost today, so they are 1-2. You've got 3-0 Seahawks, and then 3 teams sitting at 1-2 in the NFC West right now. Okay, as promised, back out to the phones we go. 888-957-9570. Up next is Brian, who's in San Jose. Brian, you're on overtime. It's Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling with you. How do you feel after that Niner loss, Brian?
Yeah, right. I mean, my first question is, we pay Ayuk $30 million a year, okay? I want to give a shout out to Billy Mills out there on the road who wanted to pay this guy. We got Jennings. What was Jennings, Jeff Mills? What was Jennings? $8 million a year. 11 out of 12? 11 for 12. What are we doing? What are we doing? I feel like we pay all these guys and they just reap this, they reap the benefits of their money and we never see him again, right? Where's CMC? He got paid. Where's Debo? He got paid. Where's our defensive guy? Bosa, did he play today? He played today. He might as well not have played today.
I thought he
He was nowhere to be seen. So I'm tired of paying these guys these guaranteeing contracts, and they don't do anything.
Appreciate the call, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Nick Bosa was good today. He didn't have a sack. Nick Bosa was all over the place. Nick Bosa was the only guy hanging out in the backfield with any regularity. It was not a Nick Bosa problem. Brandon Ayuk, yeah, we can talk about 10 targets, 5 catches, 48 yards. We can talk. That's not why the Niners lost today. If you have an issue with how the 49ers pay players or their team building, okay, that's fine, I guess. But that wasn't the issue.
Jet York.
They didn't. If they had scored 7 points today, then yeah, let's talk about Brandon Ayuk going 5 for 48. But that's just so far down the list of things that is concerning today.
It is concerning, though.
Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel are hurt. What are we talking about? I don't. That's not. I mean, that's crazy.
I'll say the decision to pay Ayuk isn't something that I'm questioning, but Ayuk, buddy, you got to be a little bit better.
You gotta catch the football.
Whatever the reason was, and this is something Sterling and I got into last week on overtime after the loss in Minnesota, whether it was Ayuk not separating because he's not up to football speed, or if it's a little bit of a disconnect between Purdy and Ayuk, or maybe Ayuk's in a little bit of a doghouse again because Shanahan's upset at how the offseason went. Whatever the reason is, okay, put all that aside. You're down McCaffrey and Debo and Kittle. You have an all-pro receiver. This is your time to shine. And what happened? The only person that Brock wanted to throw the ball to was Juwan Jennings. And it's not a knock on Juwan. It just might tell you a little something about how life is right now for Purdy and Ayuk as a connection. It's not working out. He turned half of his targets into receptions, and the longest one went for 12 yards. You need more from your all-pro receiver. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
But it didn't start that way. Through the first 3 drives of this game, including plays that had penalties, Ayuk was targeted 10 times. There was an effort to get him the ball early in this game. And whether he dropped the football or not, sure, those are bad. Catch the football, your receiver getting paid $30 million. Got to do your job. Mm-hmm. In the second half, it was almost as if it was like Ayuk's not even playing on the field. It was like Ronnie Bell's getting more targets than Brandon Ayuk in the second half. It's like Purdy isn't even looking his way. In fact, there are times where Purdy isn't even wanting to take checkdowns to Jordan Mason, who was wide open for 3 or 4 yards for free on second down. Is that a Purdy problem? Sure, but going back to Ayuk, you can't play a full half and go, oh, wow, Ayuk's back in the fray. Things are on a upward trajectory. In the second half, it's like, is he benched? I don't even see him out there. What's going on? And the YouTube chat's talking about Purdy missing Ayuk deep on that last drive of the game. Okay, whatever. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I wasn't out there. The broadcast view isn't the best view. There may be. But still, you have to have more from your stars. When your stars are out and you still have more stars left over, they got to play like stars. Yep. That's what they're paid to do.
So I actually think that the play Sterling's talking about is an important one here, because they showed that behind the quarterback angle, and you see Ayuk. Yeah. He gets inside leverage on the corner, and he's gone. But in that spot, that's Purdy wanting to keep the clock running. Yep. And not having that, this to your point, Grandy, and not having that faith in Brandon Ayuk to be like, yep, I'm uncorking this. Because that's what makes Brock Purdy great, is he's going, hey, I'm making this throw. I'm going to 4th down last week against Minnesota, tight window to Juwan Jennings down the field, like 28 yards or whatever it was. Like, man, that's gutsy. And that kind of gutsy throw is what makes Brock Purdy special. But it's clear that he and Ayuk, whatever is going on there, they're just not on the same page yet. I think they'll get there. I'm not worried about Brandon Ayuk long term. But to your guys' point, if he's in camp, maybe Purdy feels really good about that deep ball. Maybe he feels good enough that, hey, I can get air into this. I trust that Brandon Ayuk's going to run under it. But hey, it was more important to keep the clock moving in that moment, and so that's what he tried to do. I'm on both sides of this because Brandon Ayuk, they need more from him, flat out. No question. On the other side, that's not why they lost today.
Right.
I thought they did enough offensively. My bigger issue is whatever the heck is going on defensively, where they can't get stops in key moments.
Yeah, you gained 425 total yards of offense. You average 6.5 per play. Like that wins you 90% of the football games that you're going to play. And somehow you found a way to lose this one. And we're sitting here having watched the game, having talked about the game for darn near an hour already, and it's hard to find one reason because there are so many things to point to and so many mistakes. We've also got so many callers to get to, so let's keep that rolling here on Overtime. It's Grandy, Sterling, and Kyle with you. Up next is George in San Jose. George, what's up? You're on Overtime at 95.7 The Game. How you feeling?
No Cooper Kupp. No Puka Nacua. What are they doing out there? This is the most terrible loss in the last 4 years. Why? What's going on, man? They put out Ronnie Bell out there. He's dropping balls all day long. It's 3rd and forever. He's right there, wide open. He's dropping the ball. And another thing, Campbell, he can't cover in the flats. Why is he out there? Kyle Shanahan is looking like Steve Kerr. He doesn't want to play no young guys. Why don't give Witches a chance? What's going on, man? This is the worst loss in 4 years. You guys need to burn this team and tear them apart right now, man, because we are frustrated out here. This is a terrible loss. Terrible loss.
Yeah, George. I mean,
are we being nice?
Terrible.
It was disgusting. Heinous, abominable,
all the
abhorrent,
insufferable.
I'm trying to think. Is that their worst regular season loss in the last 4 years?
The Broncos one was pretty bad.
The Broncos, but even that, like
the Jimmy Garoppolo safety game.
Well, week 1 against the Bears that same year was also pretty bad.
Oh yeah, good point.
But it was raining, Mark. It was raining, and it was Trey Lance's first start of the year.
Yeah, I have a hard time disagreeing with the caller on that. That's their worst loss.
Well, because take last year for example.
Yeah.
They win 5 games in a row, then you lose 3. You can afford to lose those games. You're 1-1. You can't afford to lose a game like this. And you don't just lose. You lose in heartbreaking fashion against a much, much worse team. There's no rope to kind of give you a break. You have to win early because, like you said earlier, Kyle, you got Buffalo on the road later, Green Bay on the road later, in December, in the potentially the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. Who knows? In Kansas City, in Dallas, and Baker Mayfield somehow really good this year. Like, it's not going to get easier. You have to win games like this to give yourself a leash because you're probably going to lose more games later on in the season.
Yep.
Yeah, it does. And you're right. You have an incredibly challenging schedule in the second half, which is why it's why, I mean, it feels, I mean, it is entirely wrong saying it now. I was very wrong. But when the Christian McCaffrey IR decision came down, I was thinking, well, better to be without McCaffrey for this part of the schedule than later on. And that still might be true. It's definitely true. You hope that you have him as soon as possible once he's eligible to come off of IR. But I felt there was a decent chance that even without McCaffrey, guys, you could be 4-1 if things break right. You could maybe be 5-0 by the time he potentially comes back. Yeah. And now you're looking at 3-2, and your fingers are crossed that you hope that's what you are, and you darn well might be 2-3 at that point.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
It's bad. That's what I've decided after careful consideration. The caller's right. That's their worst loss
in the last 4 years. Regular season loss.
Worst regular season loss under Kyle Shanahan. So over the last 7 years, whatever it is. There's definitely not a worse one. I just went through the schedules. Like last year, they lose to Cleveland, Minnesota, and Cincinnati. Cleveland, they missed the game-winning field goal. Minnesota, they did the 0 blitz at the end of the half, and Minnesota gets the big touchdown. Cincinnati, they just got outplayed. That was going into the bye week. Remember, that was Steve Wilkes coming down to the field, coming out of the bye. But the difference is they beat the Steelers 30-7. They beat the Rams 30-23, Giants 30-12, Cardinals 35-16, Cowboys 42-10. They were smoking teams. And then they go on this little losing skid and it's like, okay. But you see, I don't have any proof of concept that this year's team is good. I don't. And are they banged up? Like, yeah, for sure. But you got to play with the guys that you have, and you have to play the schedule that's in front of you. I don't have any inkling or any reason to believe that this version of the 49ers is going to just suddenly rip off 9 of their next 10 and everything's going to be hunky-dory and fine. There's no reason to believe that beyond, well, last year they were good. I don't care about last year, man.
Right.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Like, Sterling, let me ask you this. If you are like, you had your mind completely wiped or you had never watched Niners football before and I just dropped you into this season without any context, you didn't know that they have, 10 of the top 75 players in the NFL. You didn't know any of that. You just plopped you in. You're a newbie to the game of football, and you watched the Niners through 2 weeks. What would you think about them, honestly? You wouldn't think that they're a Super Bowl favorite.
No, I think they're maybe a borderline playoff team.
Maybe.
They're going to be fighting for a wild card. This feels like 2021 all over again. And even that team had some leeway. Even that team was like, okay, I can understand a slow start here or there. 2 different quarterbacks to begin the year. Whereas this season's like, what is the problem? Oh, wait, there's so many. They're undisciplined. They don't cover on punts. They don't tackle on punts. They let their punts get blocked. That's just special teams. They miss field goals. They don't cover linebackers or running backs, excuse me. The defense is, by all intents and purposes, a bottom 16 unit. They're not top 10. They ain't top 15. It's Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and a bunch of I hope so's and maybe will be's. And that's not good for a team that's supposed to be fighting for a Super Bowl this year. This is the quote-unquote last dance, if you will. This is the last dance. They're playing the worst possible song to dance to because it's not fun. They're playing Darude Sandstorm, and you're like, what do I do? Where do I put my hands? I have no idea what's going on. It's a mess. It's a mess right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. 888-957-9570. The Niners fall to the Rams 27-24. They blow a 14-point lead. They blow a 10-point fourth quarter lead, and they're now 1-2, staring at a 2-game deficit between them and the top of the NFC West with the Seattle Seahawks. Up next is Diego in Sacramento. Diego, you're on overtime here on 95.7 The Game. How you doing, Diego?
I'm disappointed, man. Shanahan needs to let the rookies cook. He needs to bench Bell. He needs to put Cowan in. He's the only fast wide receiver we have that can take the top off, all right? And then also, too, he needs to bench Brown. Brown has been getting burned on all the deep routes. If you notice, every deep route that has hurt us, it's always Brown helping in coverage. They need to bench him, put Mustafa in, and they need to trade Hargrave and send him to the Jets and try to get Hassan Reddick because, like you said, what we have now is not working, and we need to put D. Winters in. We need to shake up now. Because if we don't, we may fall back so far behind we won't even sniff the wild card. So hopefully we can turn it around, guys.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate the call, Diego. I mean, I think Diego's right at the very least. Maybe not about the trade idea potentially, but he's definitely right to be worried about the defense. This is a major, major, major concern. And we talk so much about the offense and all the all-pros you have out there. You've got a lot of really good players on defense as well. You know Nick Bosa, obviously. You know Fred Warner. Mooney Ward, a awesome corner a year ago, is having a rough start to begin this season. Javon Hargrave now in his second year with the Niners. Finally had a sack today, but other than that, didn't do anything all that special and has been incredibly, consistently not good. As a Niner, you need more from him. Floyd, who you acquired to put on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, has a sack this season, but again, hasn't done anything that special yet either. There's big name players on this defense that aren't really giving you anything through 3 weeks, and that is very, very frightening, especially when you consider this was the same thing that caused them all these issues last year as well.
They made 2 trades for defensive ends in the middle of the season last year because they couldn't rush the passer. So to mitigate that this offseason, they went and got Leonard Floyd,
who's been a very good pass rusher in his career.
Yeah, throughout his career.
Incredibly
he's been
consistent.
Awesome. And just nothing last week. I'd be shocked if he gets credited with the pressure this week after having none last week. He's just a non-factor. And Javon Hargrave, okay, yeah, he had a sack today. He's disruptive in the middle, but not nearly as consistently as they were probably hoping. And it's Malik Collins and it's Jordan Elliott and it's Kevin. Okay, that's a nice little rotation. But where are the impact players on the defensive line? Like, that was supposed to be this group's bread and butter. They were getting pushed around in the run game. They were not generating any pass rush in the passing game. They're just not doing anything particularly well. And the caller was talking about Jair Brown. I'm not at bench Jair Brown stages yet, because if you go watch Malik Mustafa when he came in against the Vikings, it wasn't super pretty.
Yeah, let's also not bench him for George Odom either.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do any of that. So I'm not necessarily there, but I look at the secondary is the least of my worries right now. Like, you can nitpick Jair Brown or Isaac Yiadom or whatever. Where's their pass rush? Where's this overhauled defensive line where they added 5 new players? Where are they? What are they doing? Because today it wasn't nearly enough.
Well, the team was pitched the idea of getting back to basics, getting back to who you once were before Steve Wilks. We're talking Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans of read and react, go get the quarterback, and that will help your secondary be better. Go back to 2019. It was Richard Sherman, his last really great year in the NFL, undrafted free agent Emmanuel Mosley, and K'Wan Williams, who underrated, but, still, it really isn't a big name. They made those guys look like $100. Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tartt, this team was in the Super Bowl with the lead in the fourth quarter. Hate to bring it up, but I'm sorry. And we're sitting here like, you put more money into your defensive line now than that team in 2019. You put more money into your defensive line this year than last year's team. And it shouldn't take to trade for 2 more players to get guys like Javon Hargrave to play up to their money value.
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Yep. He was a great player in Pittsburgh, a really good player in Philadelphia. That same great player has not transferred over to San Francisco. And we heard, he lost 20 pounds, 10 pounds, the body's right. You're going to be faster and quicker. You're faster and quicker getting shoved to the ground by backup offensive linemen against the Rams?
Yep.
And I like Hargrave. He's a great guy, nice guy, always good to the media. Cool. That's cool, man. Get it. You got to play. And Nick Sorensen, how many times did we see him run stunts and get Leonard Floyd moved out of the play entirely?
Insane.
You can't do that. You are, as a defensive coordinator, you want to let your guys go get the quarterback, just, snap your fingers, green light, go Nick Bosa, go Leonard Floyd. Don't get them moved out of the play, giving Stafford 8 seconds to throw. You give a great quarterback like Matthew Stafford, and he's still a darn great quarterback. He's probably top 5 still, the way he can use that arm he has. You can't give that guy time. Even with backup receivers, he'll beat you. And he did today. Something's got to change, not just players, but even the defensive mindset of the play calls, what you're running. They're taking their own players out of the plays. That can't happen.
Yeah, they are. Let's sneak in one more call before we hit a quick break here on Overtime. Up next is Matt in Tracy. Matt, what's up? You're on with Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling. How you doing?
Hey, not too good. But all right, a couple points here. Safety's been bad all year. Like the last caller said, Brown and number 22, he's doing bad too. I know he's not a safety. Shanny, super questionable clock management. I want to take you back to 3 quick points. At the end of the first half, less than 2 minutes to go, Shanny let 30 seconds run off the clock before he called his first timeout. It's like he never wants the ball back at the end of the halves. At the very end, the Niners had 1 minute and 20 left. You can't give the Rams the ball back. You got to either run the clock or try to kick the game-winning field goal. We seem to never even have the thought in our heads that the other team is allowed to do a fake field goal or punt for the last 4 years. Ronnie Bell, 3 drop passes. I mean, he's got Brock Purdy back there scrambling instead of just handing it off at the end when we're trying to kill some time to go. It's like another fourth quarter double-digit lead blown. Horrible loss today. I mean, I don't even know where else to go. B.A. and Trent Warner hold out. They get paid. They don't show up for 2 weeks. Trent Williams with 2 holding calls today. He needed an IV at half. Brandon Ayuk hasn't ran a good route or caught anything in 3 weeks. Our schedule's not getting any easier. Our injuries are piling up. We're not going to make the playoffs if we keep this up. A lot of teams in the NFC got better this year. Wait till we play a QB like Mahomes or someone who's actually good, not someone at the end of their career. That's all I got, boys. This was horrible. You guys are being too nice to the guys today.
Appreciate the call, Matt. I mean, you make a lot of good points. I think there's something we can defend Shanahan a little bit on some of the play clock and the using the time, because at the end of the game, you're kind of balancing between trying to win in regulation and need time to do that versus also not giving the Rams the ball back with any time, but then ultimately Brock Purdy running for his life and ultimately they have to punt the ball away. You would have been fine, though, if you just covered the punt and we wouldn't even be talking about that specific moment. Maybe you lose in overtime. Who knows how it all would have went down, but...
Or if Ronnie Bell hangs on to it.
Or if Ronnie Bell holds on to it, and then you run the ball a couple of times, kill the final 25 seconds, and then kick a field goal, and you win the game.
Just
that
gross.
Very, very quickly, easily could have happened that way as well. All right, we got to take a break.
Could have missed the field goal, too.
You're right. He could have.
Well,
but
at least already did.
At least then, Sterling, it would have been overtime, not a loss in regulation.
Right,
and who knows what would have happened in overtime. Maybe it would have been even uglier, although that is hard to believe. Okay, time for a break. Overtime continues. Niners fall to the Rams 27-24. 1 hour down. We're with you for at least, 2 more hours. As long as you guys got calls, we will stay on the air. We will also hear from Kyle Shanahan, who has addressed the media postgame. We will hear that as well as overtime continues. It's Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling with you. More OT next on 95.7 The Game.
So, how's your research going?
Surprising. After I figured out the top-rated TV.
we haven't gotten to yet. Can we talk about the fake punt real quick that the Rams executed on their third drive that led to their touchdown?
6?
Yeah, 4th and 6 fake punt. Where is it? Okay, 6:22 left in the second quarter. The Rams are about to punt.
14-0 at that point.
14-0 Niners. Looks like the Niners are going to get the ball back and it cruise down. Rams fake punt goes for 7 yards. First down. Direct snap to Ronnie Rivers, who is the up back, who's their backup running back. Kyle Shanahan, after the game, said they were expecting a fake punt in that spot.
What?
Like, you don't say that. That's worse. You see how that's worse. Don't say that out loud to anyone ever. Like, if that's the case, if you went, yo, they're going to fake punt. They're at the 50. It's 4th and 6. They've got nothing to lose. We think a fake punt is coming. And they still convert. Fire everyone involved with that. Punt everyone, no pun intended, punt everyone away from whatever the hell that it was. Yeah, we thought it was coming. We expected that to go. Stop it! Oh.
If you know a fake punt's coming, you should get them for -3 yards.
Easy work. Ball going the other way. Let's go.
Just line up in your goal line defense at that point, have no return man, and say, bring it.
Seriously, if you're just have your defense on the field. If you're expecting a fake punt,
I have no idea why he'd be lying, but he has to be lying, right? I don't know why he would lie.
Then he just threw Brian Schneider under the bus of like, this guy's incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing, which might be the case anyways, but you can't say that in a press conference and not expect every fan to say, then what are we doing if you know what's coming? You had nothing to stop it. You just sat there and said, let it happen.
Is it worse to know the fake punt is coming and not stop it?
Yes.
Or in that spot to be so clueless that you're like, yeah, they're okay. We're getting the ball back. Oh, wait, a fake?
Honestly, the fake didn't surprise me that much. Because, you know, it's Sean McVay.
Yeah.
You're 0-2 if you're the Rams. You're fighting for your life. You're down 3 offensive linemen. You're 2 all-pro wide receivers. If you win this game, you need some funky things to happen. And funky things happen when you call trick plays on special teams. You kind of figure that it might happen. So I don't necessarily blame Kyle Shanahan for thinking that it might happen. But if you think it's going to happen, you can't let it happen.
Stop it. Then don't let that thing happen anymore.
Oh, my God.
At least call a timeout and say, let's talk about this. It was
Yeah, that's worth a timeout. Yeah, no doubt. It's the end of the first half anyway.
Hey, guys, they're going to fake punt. Let's go out there and just so you know, they're going to fake it. Oh, didn't stop it. Okay, that's fine. Ridiculous.
No way.
The second thing that's frustrating.
Oh, there's more?
Yeah, there's a second thing. I was doing some math, not to brag. Did you know that in the second half of this NFL football game, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy had more rushes than San Francisco 49ers running back Jordan Mason?
What a guy.
That's a real stat. 9 carries for Brock Purdy, 7 for Jordan Mason, who is second in the NFL in rushing yards heading into Sunday.
To at least be fair, I think all but 2 of them were not designed runs for Brock. They were scrambles.
Right.
It more so is just call more runs to your running back as opposed to call fewer runs for your quarterback.
When your quarterback is in such disarray, or when your offense, I should say, because that makes it sound like I'm trying to draft. I thought, like I said, Brock Purdy was pretty good today.
When the protection is bad, when your receivers aren't getting open, that he is forced to run.
Right. When your quarterback isn't comfortable throwing the football to his pass catchers and is instead scrambling around trying to fight for his life, something different's that can't happen.
Maybe hand the ball off.
Just a couple times, once or twice. Oof.
Like, what's the problem with that? Do you not trust Jordan Mason? What has he done to not show, hey, you can trust me, I'm the second leading rusher in football?
And this goes back to the caller, the first caller from earlier, who talked about Kyle Shanahan, not necessarily leaning on athleticism and young guys and instead going with the guys he knows are going to do that. That's one of those spots where, okay, maybe I'm sure Kyle Shanahan could sit me down with the all-22 and go, this is why I'm calling pass plays, because they're in this personnel, and we know that when they're in this personnel, this guy can't cover and this guy can't do this, so we're going to put him in a bind like this. Okay, totally. But also the Rams are in that personnel because they're terrified of Jordan Mason. So
they're begging you to throw the ball.
Right. So get behind your offensive line and try, like, that's So I get the logic, and that Kyle Shanahan has forgotten more about football than I will ever know. I get that. But at the same time, that logic hasn't worked. Like, oh, they want us to pass, so we're going to pass. Like, okay, sometimes, but also there's times like this where Jordan Mason has 7 carries in the second half where give it to him in a spot where they're playing run. Let him go make a play. Let him be that guy. That's another frustration I have with Kyle Shanahan.
Didn't this exact same thing happen in the Super Bowl last year?
Probably.
Though they're all in the box. They want us to pass the football, and you pass and you go with 3 and out, back-to-back drives. Yep. And you're like, we're losing now? I wonder what happened. It's like, Kyle, look, we are by no means smarter than Kyle Shanahan. He is by all intents and purposes a genius. But sometimes it's just like, you can just be the most boring head coach ever and just hammer that point home and run the football 4 times and call it a game and get out of there. You could have iced this game today on 2 separate drives, and they didn't. And it's like, why?
Yeah. Kyle, during the break, you gave me a statistic. Niners under Kyle Shanahan when rushing, 30 or more times?
So I always do this. I do these kind of stats since 2019.
Mm-hmm. Okay, since 2019.
17 and 18 were weird.
Since they started being a good football team.
Since they started being good, they were entering today 35-2 when rushing 30-plus times in a game.
Now 35-3.
Now 35-3.
I vote to strike this one from the record because 10 of their, 34 carries were from the quarterback. So this isn't really 30 rushes.
Yikes, man. Yeah, one of them at Dallas, week 15 of the 2020 season. And then week 1 of 2022, that rain game in Chicago.
Okay.
Those are the 2 losses going into
But generally, you run the ball a lot and you win. Some of that is chicken and the egg. Are you running because you're winning, or are you winning because you run? It's probably somewhere in the middle between those two. But this one, I think your guys' point stands. I know they did technically run the ball 30 times, 19 for Jordan Mason, 10 for Brock Purdy, 5 for Isaac Guerrero, 34 carries split between those 3 guys, but only 19 from your running back and 5 from your RB2. So only 24 carries from your 2 running backs. That doesn't feel like enough, especially in this game when you were up by 2 scores for a very, very long time.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm sure that there are reasons
makes
for
it worse.
But
yeah, us here at the studio watching it with the great Lo Neal, one of the best fullbacks ever, who should be in the Hall of Fame. How many times, guys, did he scream at the TV, run the damn ball?
The whole game, actually.
Run the ball.
It was the whole game.
It was
the entire game.
He could not make sense of it.
Nobody loves running the ball more than Lo Neal.
No doubt.
Also, nobody loves a Kyle Juszczyk combo block on the edge more than Lo Neal.
Lo's the best. He also bought us pizza. So shout out Lo Neal. Should be in the Hall of Fame. And,
he should.
Yes. It's an injustice. It's an injustice. All right, let's go back out to the phones. We got a few more minutes here left in this segment. It's overtime on 95.7 The Game. A lot to be frustrated about, Niner fans. Let's go out to Dave, who's in San Antonio. Dave, what's up? You're on OT on 95.7 The Game. How you feeling, Dave?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for taking my call. I think for me, it's just depressing. The defense is going to get a lot of the blame. But for me, it's like all week it's just been, can Brock win without all of his weapons? And what did the dude do? He played phenomenal. 134 passer rating, 3 TDs. He played exceptional, did everything to do to win the game, and we got the L. And nobody's going to talk about it. And that's just frustrating to me. Everybody's blaming Bell. Yeah, the drop by Bell was massive. That's inexcusable. That would have won the game if Moody, who had already missed a field goal, would have then hit a game winner. But BA's drop on 3rd and 4, nobody's talking about that. That drop on 3rd and 4 then led to the drive where the Rams scored on, where they had the fake punt and scored. But BA's drop that hit him in the stomach on 3rd and 4 was massive.
Yep.
It's just depressing to me that Purdy's not going to get any of the dues other than for us that he should get. And all week everybody was bashing, can he win without weapons? Can he win without weapons? No quarterback can win without weapons. And Brock did it today with freaking Ronnie Bell out there, who dropped 3 passes, and the Niners dropped 7 passes. He played phenomenal. And what was poetic to me was Ayuk dropped that final pitch on that last play of the game. And I'm just disappointed because I love Ayuk. And he's just been disappointing all year. I was hoping he'd have a great game tonight, and he didn't. And hats off to Jennings. The dude played amazing. Brock played amazing. I love Mason, the way the dude runs, and the defense failed us, but we only gave up 27. We still should have won this game going away. I feel bad for Brock. The dude's going to have a hell of a year, and I feel for him. And so thanks for taking my call, guys. It's depressing, and I feel for Brock and Jennings, for the game that they had today. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the call, Dave. It was definitely Brock's best game of the year.
Without question.
No doubt. Not even close. And it's unfortunate that, this whole week, and I think this is what the caller was getting to, this whole week turned into a referendum on Brock. This is going to be the game that we find out. Can he do it without all pros all around him?
Yeah.
He looked pretty damn good. Now it turned into a loss, so I don't know where the conversation goes from here, but he looked pretty good.
Any Brock Purdy detractor, look, again, the negative tone for today's show, but let's give Brock some flowers. Any Brock Purdy detractor who uses this game as the see, he can't do it, knows nil ball and they're a dunce. Flat out. No, Brock was great today. I was over the moon with how well Brock Purdy played. Because I was one of the people going, hey man, are we totally sure he can cook?
We were going to learn something one way or the other.
Yeah, right. And he cooked, bro.
And we learned that, he could do it.
I thought he was good. Was it perfect? No, but it's also really hard when you're playing with a bunch of guys you don't usually play with. When your team's easier to defend. And the quarterback was at the bottom of the list of things that were bad today. So to me, just to that caller, if you see anybody or hear anybody going yep, the Niners lost because Brock Purdy wasn't good enough, disregard that opinion. That's just silly.
Brock Purdy was phenomenal. He put them in positions to win over and over and over again.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times in my notes I have the words holy and you know what after it. It was oh my goodness, Brock.
Shoot.
Sure. Heck, shoot, whatever else you want to say with an SH in there, fine.
The 3rd and 4 at the end of the third, his scramble where he avoided the sack 3 different times, used the pump fake twice to get around defenders, and then dove headlong, stretched his right hand out to get the first down. What? That was straight out of the Patrick Mahomes playbook. That was incredible what he did there.
Yep. There were so many highlight reel plays on Brock Purdy's resume today that almost every Jennings throw was how'd you fit it into triple coverage over the safety, whatever it was, the scrambles. It was he's doing everything to keep this offense moving, whereas everyone else is kind of just we're trying to pull the offense back.
Yeah. The Jennings mossing the Rams defender. And then back-to-back, he has the moss grab, and then he has the sliding grab between 3 different Rams defenders. The dude has never played better. It's so sad that it had to come in this kind of game. The Niners lose, and they wasted an awesome Jennings game, a great Brock Purdy game, and they're now 1-2 on the year. 27-24 is the final score down in L.A. All right, we got to take a break. We got more of your calls to get to, and we have Kyle Shanahan's full press conference. Was Kyle Madsen lying to us? Did Kyle Shanahan really say that he knew the fake punt was coming? We will hear from Kyle Shanahan coming up next, as well as overtime continues. It's Grandy, Madsen, Sterling with you. More on 95.7 The Game as OT continues next.
What if you could hear your favorite song for the first time again? Introducing the all-new, reimagined Nissan Kicks with an available...
your way into the show, visit our contest.
75+% zone for nearly the whole game. And then that missed field goal happened. That was the beginning of the climb towards the Ram. Then it was just steady over and over and over and over until they ultimately win at the end of regulation. The Niners, how about this, guys? The Niners scored on their first possession of the game. They scored a touchdown with 11 minutes and 12 seconds on the clock. So that means the game was tied for about 4 minutes to begin the game. The Rams then took a lead with 2 seconds left. The Niners trailed for 2 seconds in this football game, tied for 4, led for the entire rest of the football game, but it was a game that they lost.
Gross. I hate that so much. That's so annoying.
So embarrassing. Embarrassing.
I have a new annoying thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I have another new thing that I'm annoyed by.
I don't know if I'm ready, but
breaks have just evolved into me just going through the play-by-play and just finding the plays that sucked.
It's a lot of them.
So here's one. I actually said this. You know what? I'm going to absorb some of the blame for the loss today.
Uh-oh.
Because I did something I never do.
What'd you do?
I said out loud, this is over.
You did. I remember that.
And I found the exact play that this happens. 2nd and 1, the Niners on LA's 46. Jordan Mason, who had just gone for 9 yards, goes off left tackle for 4 yards. Niners are cruising, clock winding down towards 4 minutes. They're going to get into field goal range. They'll kick a field goal with a little bit of time left, go up by 2 scores and ice this one. Outside handoff to Isaac Guerrero, holding on Kyle Juszczyk. Which moves it back to a 1st and 20. And this is where you can start talking clock management with Kyle Shanahan, because you go to 1st and 20 at your own 48 now. So it wasn't like they were still in field goal range.
Yeah.
They have to now go get yards. So they go pass to Juwan Jennings for 5 yards. That's the play that I believe he had Brandon Ayuk open deep.
And it was the crazy Purdy scramble.
Yeah, and then he hits Juwan Jennings on the right side for 5 yards. Easy work. Next snap doesn't come until there's 3:11 left. They burnt almost a minute between that play and the next snap.
Part of it was because the play was 20 seconds long because Purdy ran back and forth like 8 different times.
Right, insane. And then happens again. He hits Juwan Jennings to the LA 40 on 2nd and 15 for 7 yards. But Juwan Jennings goes out of bounds, which stops the clock. That left the 49ers in 3rd and 8. And again, this is where it's like, okay, yeah, you'd like to see them run and burn clock, but you can't in that spot. And Purdy naturally drops back to pass. He ends up scrambling, getting 3 yards. And that was kind of it. So when we talk clock management, we talk play calling and this and that. It's like that you can go to that for sure in a couple of spots. But this all started with that holding call on Kyle Juszczyk, because that's what put them behind the sticks at 1st and 20. That's what moved them way out of field goal range. Where now all of a sudden, oh my God, they got to pass just to get to a 55-yard field goal.
Like, put it this way. 1st and 20 after the holding happens. You're up by 7. There's 4 minutes left in the game. If Shanahan just went run, maybe you force the Rams to call a timeout, or maybe you punt the ball back to them with 2 minutes left, whatever the case was. However it happened. But if you just run, don't get the first down, Shanahan would be flamed for playing not to lose.
Correct.
Correct. No matter how this plays out, as long as the team doesn't get the first down, his play calling is going to be under the microscope. And it's just the reality of the situation, being a head coach in the NFL.
Sure.
So maybe it's less about, are you running? Are you passing? How are you making up for the hold? But it's bringing whatever the play call is, something that you don't need Brock Purdy to run for, or maybe it's up to the offensive line to just block a little better for a play here or there. There's I get everything that you're saying, but if you just flipped it the other way and it doesn't work out, he's being flamed for the exact opposite play call.
Absolutely.
You know, we can go through every single play of this game and point to everything that went wrong. It's a lot of things, unfortunately, late in the game. But I don't really care, because a game like this is inexcusable to lose. You had every reason to win this game. You walked in with the advantage. Yeah, you don't have your stars, whatever. You have plenty of stars left to win a game like this.
Yep.
You had a 14-point lead. Going into the 4th quarter, you had a lead. You had multiple third downs, whether it's play calling or drop passes. Losing a game like this, being 1-2 with this roster, can't happen. Shouldn't happen.
Nope.
And what you're trying to accomplish doesn't mean that they can't eventually get there. They can be 2-2 by next week, and we're all saying, wow, what a bounce-back win. This week should have been that bounce-back win. You looked bad against the Vikings. Brian Flores made Kyle Shanahan look like a B, C tier coach. That's how great Brian Flores was for the Vikings last week. And they have bad personnel, very similar to the Rams, who are much worse, and they don't even have Brian Flores. You put up 24 points in this game, and a caller said, oh, they only gave up 27. 27 to this team?
That's terrible.
These Rams? Like, you should have gave up 13
Honestly,
to this roster.
I would have been frustrated if they gave up 17, considering what their offense is.
And 27, losing a game like this in the fashion in which they lost, inexcusable. I get it's week 3, but you should have walked into this game saying, we're going to come in here and we're going to take it to the Rams nonstop, put up 30, 40 points. If the Cardinals can do it, why can't a team that was in the Super Bowl last year do it? I ain't asking for a 45, 50 points. Give me 33. Give me 27. You can't score 27 against one of the worst defenses in football? How? Yeah, the near MVP quarterback, an all-pro receiver, a guy who got a larger chunk of money this year in Jennings having a career game, and you can't win? Why? You have the league's second leading rusher, you can't win? Why? You had the game in your hands multiple times, and you continually let the Rams back in the game, and you lost, you choked, and that cannot happen with a roster like this when you want to win a Super Bowl. It can't happen. Inexcusable.
Yeah, absolutely. 888-957-9570. Paul in Pleasanton is up next. Paul, what's up? You're on Overtime. It's Grandy, Kyle, and Sterling with you. How you doing, Paul?
Yeah, guys, thanks for taking the call. Yeah, I mean, this game could have gone either way, but yeah, I mean, as Sterling was saying, they should have won this game by like double digits, right? You're talking about a underpowered, undermanned team, and if you're Super Bowl caliber, so this is definitely a big, warning. I think there are two issues that I see in this game. First is if we can please put to rest this absurd notion that you don't need preseason. And now we have seen like second year in a row, last year with Bosa. If you were planning on paying these guys, pay them up front, get them in the preseason. I think you'll see issues with Ayuk and Williams for next few months, and that's not good, The second issue is the defensive line. I mean, that was just bad, play by them throughout the game. And I see like two issues with the defensive line. I want to get your thoughts on it. One is, Shanahan seems to want to build this by getting hired guns. We have two expensive free agent signings. I was thinking how many free agent signing stars do you see on defensive line, right? People who sign a contract and do well on their next gigs. I mean, this is a position that teams are not going to let go, off their stars. And the one homegrown star we have, Bosa, he has this unique ability of not showing up in big moments here. Think of that last, Rams. That'll be a perfect time for him to show up. Compare him to Chris Jones and what he does, in that last drive of 49ers in the Super Bowl here. So I see the defensive line as a problem for the rest of the season, and I see a problem with both Ayuk and Williams' performance.
Paul, I think you hit a number of key points there. I mean, the defense for me is problem number one, in the defensive line specifically. You've got the best pass rusher opposite Bosa that you've had in Bosa's career, and you've got a lot of talent inside. I know you lost Armstead this past off season, and he's been good for you for a while. Wasn't necessarily super consistent for you last year, but the defensive line wasn't very good either. Javon Hargrave has had a fantastic career, has not been a very good Niner. Malik Collins maybe has been the better of the interior linemen so far this season. He was awesome week 1 against the Jets. Nick Bosa, we know what he's capable of, but it seems like he hasn't reached the level that he was a couple of years ago. Since then, whether that was the offseason last year and the contract situation, whatever it is, the bottom line, and it's why I agree with the call, the biggest issue for this team right now is the defense, and specifically guys on the defensive line. You have guys who just are not living up to the standards that they have set for themselves previously in their careers.
And this is the difficulty I have with Nick Bosa, because I thought he was pretty good today. He was in the backfield a lot. He was moving Stafford off of his spot. There were a couple times he got very close to a sack. I think he drew a holding call in there at some point. Nick Bosa is really good. But to that caller's point, What's the signature, like, dang, Nick Bosa took over that game moment?
It doesn't exist.
It was there's the one game.
The Browns game, Monday Night Football, his rookie season. The Panther game, 4 years ago.
Yeah, the Panthers game in his rookie season is the one that sticks out to me. He had the interception and I think he had 3 sacks. But that's week 7 of his rookie year.
Meanwhile, someone like TJ Watt does it every single week.
Yeah, exactly. When's the oh my God, they just cannot block Nick Bosa. He is a terror. It just doesn't. So, okay, yeah, getting pressures is nice and moving the quarterback off his spot is nice. But, 97's paid to get the quarterback on the ground. That's the bottom line. And I know there's more to football than that. I know that's so, like, but at the same time, when you're looking at, hey, what are the ways that this defense can improve?
Yep.
It's like, well, 97 could put the quarterback on his back. That's a start.
Myles Garrett does it. TJ Watt does it.
All the
Micah
good ones
Parsons
do it.
sometimes does it. Aiden Hutchinson does it.
Max
Crosby does it. It's like, and now Nick Bosa to me is in their tier of players, but like
Totally
Kyle
agree.
said, what is that Nick Bosa game you point to and say, wow, Nick Bosa changed the trajectory of that game. Take a game like this. San Francisco's reeling. Defense can't find an answer to Matthew Stafford. The secondary can't cover backups. You need your star. Like last week, Fred Warner, that was his game. They lost.
Facts.
That was his game by far.
Very cool.
Nick Bosa this year, and Nick, to me, again, played good, had a lot of pressures, was moving the pocket for sure. He's hoping other guys do their job to clean things up. I get that. But for a player who paycheck is usually reliant on the one box score stat, meaning a sack, we need you to have 18. We need you to have 20. We need you to have 15 this year, Nick. If other guys aren't going to pick up the slack, you got to do your job. Bill Belichick said that. Bill Walsh said that. Do your job. Other guys will fall in line eventually. And if they don't, they'll get cut. They'll get traded. They'll get benched. Today, a lot of guys didn't do their job. Nick Bosa did his for the most part, but someone's got to take over that game on defense. Warner can only do so much. That was last week. Where was Bosa? Mooney Ward. Lenore, you want to get paid? Take over a game for us. And he was good today too, but someone's got to take over this game on defense.
Yeah, and when your standards are Nick Bosa, Defensive Player of the Year, I'm up there in the echelon of the TJ Watts and the Micah Parsons and everyone of that category. When your team has a performance like this, and let's be real, guys, the Niners defense have had performances like this a lot recently, not just early this year, but a lot of the second half of last season where it felt like they were underperforming given their talent. And I know name value only goes so far. Maybe it's time we start grading this team based on how they're playing on the field and not what they were when they were playing their best football at some point in their career. But when you're having a game like this, where you're not getting home to the quarterback, where they're getting 6 yards on the ground and they're just dinking dunking you, and it's harder for you to get off the field, that's where you need your best player to step up and just make a play to change the game.
That's it.
It's what Fred Warner did last week, as you guys are talking about. I know ultimately it did not work out. If Fred Warner did not exist, the Niners would have lost to the Vikings by 21 points last week.
Yep.
You need your star to come up and change the game at some point. When the Rams are driving to try to go and tie the game near the end of the fourth quarter, that's when TJ Watt comes in and strip sack the quarterback from behind, gets the ball back, they kneel on it, they win. Like, you need that from Nick Bosa. It's unfair to say, Nick, you were good. We need you to be great every single time, every single game. But there are moments where you say, this is where you're paying. It's the same thing for Ayuk. You're paying Ayuk $30 million. You got to do more. You're paying Nick Bosa, when he signed the contract, the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah.
You're paying him that kind of money. He's got to step up in the bigger moments. And honestly, the last year and a half, he hasn't really done that.
And this is where the separation comes between Bosa and Ayuk for me. Like, Bosa, it's his job to go around the offensive tackle or guard, depending on what they're running.
It's like purely dependent on him, basically.
Right. He is going to go
1v1, maybe 1v2 every once in a while.
For the most part, yeah. And, there's going to be stunts in games they run in blitzes and stuff where other players are going to have an impact. But it's him, if he beats his guy and gets to the quarterback, he can get the quarterback on the ground. With Ayuk, like, at least sometimes he's open and the throw just doesn't go to him. I know he had a couple of drops today, and that's obviously his issue.
A lot more variables
but
there.
That's right. But that's where those two things diverge for me, because I'm guessing there's people like, man, if you're going to call out Nick Bosa, if you're going to say he needs to make a play, then why isn't Brandon Ayuk making a play? I get it. The caller brought up that third down drop. That was huge. No doubt. Huge play in the game. He's got to be better. I never saw a good replay if Tre'Davious White got a hand in and knocked the ball out, or if that was just a flat out drop. I didn't see.
I think Tre'Davious White was involved, and he got his arm in there, but it's still one I'm sure Ayuk could tell you he's got to come down with.
A $30 million receiver's got to make that play. Juwan Jennings made that similar play.
He made like four plays tougher than that.
Yeah, right. So that's where those two things break off to me. Like, yeah, the Niners need more from Ayuk, but when it comes to the defensive side, they're not getting enough from Leonard Floyd. They're not getting enough from Javon Hargrave. Man, the second level, they're really struggling to cover in the second level. Like, 97's got to go make a freaking play, man. Just need more from
take it further than that. And you never want to bring up someone's money of what they're getting. It's not my money. Good for you for getting it. But what I can't have is Charvarius Ward, who on this roster has the highest base salary of $12.5 million, giving up a 53-yard bomb to Tutu Atwell with the game on the line.
When the one thing, you just can't let someone get past you.
I cannot count how many times in this game Stafford just said, screw it, I'm throwing it up somewhere. It'll be a DPI, it'll be a holding call. There was a point in this game, almost every single play I was like, they're going to go deep. It's San Francisco so many times, whether it's a deep crosser, over the linebackers, or just take a shot downfield on Devondre Campbell, Mooney Ward. This is Mooney Ward's contract year. You want to get brought back? You want to get paid big money? Through 3 weeks? I mean, my goodness, man, you're not going to be a top 10 corner when it's all said and done after this year. You can't get burnt by a fourth receiver when you know it's coming. When the Rams have to hit a deep ball, they get back in the game, and you just go, oops. What do you mean, oops? Every coach will tell you, no one likes a palms-up player. I don't know what happened. Not my fault. Oopsies. That can't happen. Put your head down and go, I got to get better next week. You got the Patriots. They ain't got no weapons. The Rams had no weapons. Things got to tighten up real quick. It's getting ugly.
Yeah. Ward has had a very, very bad beginning to the season, and you're right. You get beat by any Rams receiver today, it's bad because they are all they're wide receiver threes at best. And generally speaking, if things were going well for the Rams, they wouldn't even be seeing the field, at least at this point of the regular season.
I actually didn't think Ward was bad in week 2, and he and Lenore after the game were talking about how, like, hey, other people got to show up ready to play, like, and then you're gonna say that and then come out today and get cooked in the biggest spot of the game.
There was also you
can't do that.
There was also kind of the awkward, and it almost was a throwback to the Steve Wilkes throw under the bus comments by Shanahan. There was the Justin Jefferson 97-yard touchdown last week where he was matched up with George Odom with help from Jair Brown. And after the game, Mooney Ward was asked, do you like to be matched up with one guy, the star receiver? Do you want to travel with him? He was like, yeah, as the number one guy, you always want to be on the best guy, but that's just not how it was schemed up or whatever. Almost like already after week 2, you kind of have a little bit of players throwing the scheme, throwing coaches under the bus, and how early that is the theme for this defense is not a good sign at all. But we do have to consider the fact that this is something that you brought up earlier, Sterling. Maybe the 49ers, maybe Kyle Shanahan for the second consecutive year are being led by defensive staff that maybe isn't quite cut out for it. As Steve Wilkes said last year, I can honestly say I'm built for this. We can honestly say you were not built for this. Through 3 weeks, the early returns are maybe this defense isn't quite built for it either.
If you told me last year, even with Steve Wilkes, that San Francisco gave up 27 points to a Rams team that was healthy, I would say probably not. This team was probably going to hold the Rams to 23 points, 24 points. That didn't happen today. Go back to Ryan's and Salah's tenure. There was an emphasis on we're going to give up 13 points and that's going to be it, to a point where the defense is going to keep us in games when the offense can't answer. And through 3 games, albeit the offense has sputtered at some points, mainly against the Vikings especially, but through 2 of the 3 games so far, it's been a lot of the offense carrying the load for this roster. And today it was all offense. There was really no defense once the second half happened. you need to have that almost that switch flipped in your brain of, okay, the defense has to then become who they once were. And maybe it takes time. Let's not forget Nick Sorensen, who could be the wrong guy, could be the right guy. His third ever game calling plays. Maybe come week 10, we're talking, oh my goodness, Nick Sorensen's dialing things up.
Sure.
But the thing is that if you continue to lose games, we're not talking come week 10. We're talking, oh my goodness, they're 3-5, they're 3-6. What has 2024 become? And then everything else starts to get questioned. So you got to get the ship righted quickly, because unfortunately in the NFL, you can sink really, really fast.
If you're looking for one positive out of the defense, guys, maybe you could say Talanoa Hufanga, who made his 2024 debut, and at least on first watch for me, didn't make any singular terrible mistake.
He was out there.
He was out there, which I guess that's a positive in and of itself. But
being a Tiger,
Hufanga made his debut, and there was bad stuff all the way around. Not a lot of terrible stuff from Talanoa Hufanga, which is certainly good news. We do have to hit a quick break, but before we do go, I wanted to toss out this poll that our guy Carter has put on our YouTube page at 95.7 The Game. Niner fans, who are you most frustrated with following this brutal loss? Your options are Kyle Shanahan, Sorensen and the defense, Brandon Ayuk, or Ronnie Bell. Sorensen, the defense, number one with over 40% of the vote. Ronnie Bell, second with 33% of the vote. Kyle Shanahan, third with nearly 20% of the vote. And then Ayuk coming in a distant fourth with about 7% of the vote. So most Niner fans frustrated by the defense, then the young receiver Ronnie Bell, who made a couple of the drops, then the head coach Kyle Shanahan, followed by Brandon Ayuk. You can vote on that poll by visiting us on Twitter at 95.7 The Game. Okay, time for a break. Nathan, I see you on hold. We'll get to you. Also, we got to get to Kyle Shanahan, who addressed the media postgame. That's coming up on the other side as well. The Niners fall to the Rams in LA 27-24 as they blow a 14-point lead in this one down in SoFi. More OT next on 95.7 The Game.
So what are you reading?
I'm checking out the ratings on the new TVs, and it looks like Samsung, LG, and Sony got the best scores.
frustrating losses I can remember as a 49er fan. Kyle Madsen unofficially is calling it the worst loss, the most frustrating loss, the most disappointing loss, whatever adjective you want to use in the Kyle Shanahan era. That's how bad this one was. The Niners led basically for the entire game. They scored with 11 minutes and 12 seconds left on the clock, which means it took them 3 minutes and 48 seconds to score, to take a lead in this game. They led all the way until the 151 mark when the Rams tied it, and they only trailed for the final 2 seconds of the game after the Rams kicked the go-ahead field goal from 37 yards out to win 27-24. It's not just that, though. It's who these Rams are, and these Rams are not the Rams of last year when they put together an awesome second half of the season, went to the postseason, darn near could have won a playoff game, probably should have. They were really, really close to beating the Lions in Detroit in that playoff game last year. They're dealing with 3 reserve offensive linemen on an O-line that isn't even good when fully healthy. They're down their 2 all-pro wide receivers, and their defense, which to their credit is mostly healthy, flat out is a bad defense. This is a bad football team. The team that they put on the field right now, one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like they're up there. One of the least talented teams in the NFL, considering who actually played today, and the Niners blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead to that team.
And that's the part that sucks about this. Because the 49ers were down some guys too, right? And Nick Bosa dealing with a rib thing, Travarius Ward dealing with knee and hamstring things, and then McCaffrey and Samuel and Kittle are all out. Like, the Niners have injury stuff of their own. And if they had just gone in and lost this game, if they lost, let's just say 24-20, and it was just kind of back and forth the whole time, and they got beat, that's bad. But we're not going, oh, man, worst loss of the Shanahan era. We're talking about, oh, the injuries, they couldn't overcome, and this and that, and when did these guys come back, blah, blah. They should have won this game. Sterling, I think you said there were like four different times they could have put this game away. And then they just never did. And that's the part that sucks. They were so clearly, even with their injuries, they were so clearly the better team until the final 4 minutes, when everything that could possibly go wrong, everything they could possibly do wrong, every play they could fail to execute happened. And that's where this comes in, and you say this is the worst loss of the Shanahan era because they were up 2 scores multiple times, including with 4 minutes left. And they couldn't put it away. That's brutal.
I think had Matthew Stafford come out from the get-go and had a phenomenal game, 400 passing yards and was dicing you up, you go, you know what? It's just one of those days. He's on another level. We have to just swallow it and move on. Mm-hmm. But he didn't. Matthew Stafford had 16 completions for 221 yards, 1 touchdown, was sacked 3 different times. Again, he was behind multiple times in this game. You gave the Rams a free 111 yards on penalties. The Niners gave this game away. And that is far worse than just getting beat outright. Again, 24-20, Stafford's just crushing it. You're like, you know what? Like prime Rodgers and prime Brady, they're taking over the game, and nothing you do can stop them. Okay, fine. You're 1-2. You got beat because Stafford's having a career day. You can swallow that and go, man, that sucks. Okay, this game was, you had control. You were the better team. You were being explosive. You were getting the penalty calls. You were running the football. You were controlling the line of scrimmage for 2.5 quarters. You had a 2-score lead. And then in the blink of an eye, it was like, this thing's taking a turn. Now, how do you react? One of the biggest things in football is how do you make adjustments? San Francisco, through 3 games, and the main 2 they've lost, have not made adjustments. Whether it's second half, whether it's just the third quarter, or the fourth quarter. There is no, hey, let's do our due diligence on how to stop what the opposing team is doing. It's, hey, we don't have an answer. Let's hope they don't score more points in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, not a lot of adjustments for the 49ers throughout the course of this one, and even throughout the course of 3 weeks now. Back out to the phones, 888-957-9570. Nathan's chilling in Beaumont, and he's now on 95.7 The Game on overtime. Hey, Nathan, how are you feeling after this Niner loss?
Yeah, like you guys and like all the other calls, I'm sick to my stomach because, like you said, we all saw the whole thing. And what I'm seeing is, and you guys have hit a lot of the points, is I go boil it down to situational football. You can own the game and control the game. And your quarterback, if like in football, if your quarterback is playing better than the opposition, you almost always win. But situational football is so crucial. It's not just about making plays during the game. It's making plays when you got to make them the most. And the Rams did that. The unsung hero for them, that defensive line didn't break. Normally when the 49ers run like they do, eventually they wear down a defense and they break, and then it becomes an avalanche, and they can't, and the team just cries uncle and they give up. So the 49ers have like a Mike Tyson quality to them. And sometimes when they get on a roll, they destroy you. But if you let them hang around, if you can hang around just a little bit, they'll find a way to screw something up.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is too many guys in too many instances. Either it's mental, and to me, Kyle Shanahan seems to be a guy who hammers the details, but there's something mentally awful that these guys just, like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? It's not just physical mistakes. They're making mental mistakes in these situations that's killing them. And it's just maddening and frustrating.
Yep. Yeah, Nathan, I think you make a lot of good points. Something that has really spoken to me, that what Nathan said, and it's the way I felt watching Niner football for a long time now. Something that this team used to always be the best at was in second halves, in fourth quarters, they just wear you down. You get into the second half, you get into the fourth quarter, if it's a close game, those 3-yard runs in the first half are 7-yard runs, 12-yard runs in the second half. You can't get stops. You're killing a bunch of clock, and you can just run the ball to victory. That hasn't really been the case for the 49ers, at least to begin this season. Part of that is being without McCaffrey. Obviously, that's a major, major loss. But to the caller's point, the Niners even had that mindset and that skill, that characteristic, even before Christian McCaffrey was a 49er. They were doing that with the likes of Elijah Mitchell and Raheem Mostert way back when.
It's part of why they were always so good against the Rams. They would just bully them, push them around. And I actually, to the caller's point, I actually think they were doing that today. And that was when I told you,
this game's over.
This game's over, is because that's what they had started to do. And we go back to that Kyle Juszczyk holding call. That was even 5 yards for Isaac Guerrero. It went 9-yard run, 4-yard run, 5-yard run. They're deep in Rams territory. It's like, we've seen this movie a million times. They're going to score a touchdown here. Forget a field goal. They're going to run their way into the end zone and just put an exclamation point on this thing. Oh, but then holding call. Now it's 1st and 20. Now they're on the wrong side of the 50 again. Now that advantage that they had, that they've built, that the caller brings up, that they have used time and time again to win all these games under Kyle Shanahan. Now that club's not in their bag anymore. You're off the green. You don't get to use your putter now. And that was to me, of all the plays that we have circled and pointed out and dissected, that's the one that jumps out to me the most, because they were going to put that away. For when I said it was over, I never say that kind of thing out loud. But I was so confident because, man, how many times have you seen this team just get downhill at the end of a game, wear a team out, and they're going to score with 1 minute and 12 seconds left. They're going to go up 14, night. See you next week. But then the holding call, game script changes, the whole game changed.
But the components are still there without Christian McCaffrey, without Deebo Samuel, even without George Kittle, to do exactly what San Francisco has done, mainly against the Rams, dating back to 2019. They didn't have this Deebo Samuel in 2019. He was a rookie. They didn't have Emmanuel Sanders until later in the season. They had Matt Breida and Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman, who are fine. All respect to those players. They have far better personnel now to inflict Shanahan's will of run the football 35 times, we'll go for 200 yards, and we're just going to shove it down your throat until you can't breathe anymore and the game's over with. Meanwhile, with those same components, they're not doing that. This is one of the more head-scratching mysteries of this team to me, because you have all the pieces of the puzzle, yet it's not making a clear picture, which this team should be at least 2-1. Okay, you lost to the Vikings, chalk it up, Brian Flores, great job. But all the same components you had, even against better Rams teams, which, mind you, no Aaron Donald this year anymore, and you lose the first game without him against a younger, less put-together rookie defensive coordinator. And I get the main issue this game was the defense not doing their job. Stafford's still there, McVay's still there. But even then, previous Niner teams with worse rosters would have won this game by 10, by 14, which makes this so much harder to swallow.
Yeah. No doubt. Let's try to get some answers. Kyle Shanahan speaking post-game earlier today after the 49ers lost to the Rams in LA. Final score 27-24. We want you guys to hear all of Kyle Shanahan. We'll play it for you right now. Shanahan addressing the media after what Kyle Madsen is coining the worst loss of the Kyle Shanahan era, at least in the regular season. Here is the coach, Kyle Shanahan of the Niners, after today's loss.
It. I thought we had every chance to win that game. I thought also we had a number of times in the game we had opportunities to run away with it, especially early in the game, having that 14-point lead, and they hadn't really moved the ball on our D and starting with that fake punt. I think after that, I feel like he went like 8 of his next 10 or something like that, so that got him back in the game. There at the end, we want to go in and score on that drive, obviously a touchdown. We ended up getting a field goal. I believe it made it 2 scores, but then they went right down and answered with a field goal. I thought we had a chance to make it a 2-score game. We ended up missing that field goal. And then I think they got a bomb where they went down there right away. Didn't even make them really work for it. They got a big chunk. Got behind their defense too much today. Gave them some easy ones in that way. And you saw what happened at the end.
Have you ever been through a special teams stretch like this?
In my career, yeah, definitely. It was a disappointing block last week, definitely. Today, that fake punt, it's just the momentum in the game. That's where I thought we had a chance to run away with it, not give them any hope. And that gave them a lot of hope, got them back in it. And obviously would have loved to make that field goal. And then every punt return, I didn't really see it. They got to the left on our side. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but those are 3 big plays in the game.
You've mentioned deep balls the last 2 games. Is there a common denominator on some of the completions you're making?
No. Different guys, different coverages, no common denominator.
What was your message to them in the locker room, Kyle?
Just how disappointing of a loss that was. I knew everyone was pissed without them having to tell me, and we should be. When you have a game like that where you feel you have every chance to win and you don't get it done, those are usually the more disappointing ones. All 3 phases had their doing that, but there was also times that a phase could take over and not even allow it to come to something. And I told them last night, you got to take their hope away. You give Stafford too much hope, and you put the ball in his hands at the end. That's not a situation you want to be in. And we had every chance to avoid that situation a number of times, and we came up short.
How do you feel Brock played particularly?
It seemed like Brock played his ass off from what I saw. He made a bunch of big plays. He took some good shots down the field. It was tough to not come up with that one on that last drive, especially after missing that field goal. When stuff wasn't there, he did a hell of a job scrambling, making some off-schedule plays, and from what I saw, I thought he played his ass off.
You mentioned the other day when talking about the Rams, how hard it can feel if you lose 2 in a row. How do you make sure this doesn't continue to do into
Same way as always. Last year we lost 3 in a row. So you know how that's going to be regardless. We lost 3 in a row after winning 5 in a row. But still, I know how that felt then. I know how our guys feel now. I know how we felt all week. Had a real good week of practice. Thought it would carry over to the game, and it did in a lot of areas. There were some areas where that's why I thought we had a chance to not only just win but run away with it. And you still got to make those plays in the heat of battle, though. There were some big third downs where we could have got off the field. Obviously, the fake punt where we should have got off the field. But you let teams hang around in this league, let alone one with that type of quarterback. That stuff happens more often than not.
I'm going to put this on one player, but Ronnie Bell, does he have to make that catch?
Yeah, anybody does. There's other catches in the game that you want people to make, but and you hope it doesn't have to come down to that. But Ronnie will say the same thing. He needs to make that catch, but if he doesn't, then you'd like to be able to overcome it. And you can overcome it in other ways, but we didn't.
I know there are injuries, but we really haven't seen Ronnie Bell make any plays recently, maybe his whole career. Does he need to be on the field in that situation? Are there other receivers who should have got a chance there?
There's 5 in a game. We're rotating a lot of guys in there, and no, he was the guy out there. Chris Conley got that earlier in the game, but those 3 receivers we have up. Ronnie's been having a hell of a camp, had a hell of a week of practicing, but he's got to come down with that catch.
What can you say about Juwan's performance?
Juwan was unbelievable. I think the numbers show it, but more than the numbers, just he was a warrior the whole game. He's always like that. Got a lot more opportunities today, and was automatic on every single one, and even some bad looks. When I didn't know if the ball should go there, you quickly saw after it that they weren't going to take that away from Juwan, and he was very inspiring today how he played.
Can't think of any games in your time here where you've lost like this, where you've had to look like you're in control. Maybe the Packers game a couple of years ago, but do these especially grind at you? Do you already feel it that this might be a little different than some of the other losses?
Yeah, you just know when you have the opportunities to end it. You don't want it to get to that point at the end. But I definitely know we did. We had those opportunities. We could end it on offense, defense, or special teams. And when all three take their turns there at the end, those are the most frustrating ones.
Obviously, Jake's made a lot of kicks this year, all of them actually. Did you consider, what was the consideration there for going for it versus kicking the 55-yard?
There was no consideration. I think it was 4th and 5, maybe 4th and 6. But it was about making a 2-score game. I felt great about him. I don't feel much different from that distance to 48. He's been real good with that stuff, and just missed it, and I'll have to learn from it.
In the one before, I think the short one, I think Jordan maybe lost a yard. Did you end up kicking that because it was 4th and 2?
Yeah, we were. It was very similar to the situation before. I felt good finding a way to go up 2 scores. Definitely wanted it to be 14. The 3rd and 1, we knew if we got any on it, we were going to go for it on 4th, and we did. And the next time, we planned on going for it, but losing a yard and already being up 7. I thought the smart thing was to go get 2 scores. I felt their only chance to get back in the game was to make it a 1-score game, give them the momentum by giving them a chance to stop us on 4th down, and felt pretty good once we got up 2 scores, but that quickly ended.
What did you see from him?
Some good things. I mean, I thought, from what I saw, I thought he had a good game, but it was solid.
You mentioned that receivers are getting past your defense a little bit too much. Is there anything schematically that's happening there, or it's just happening?
No. I mean, I think they got 2 times that they ran round one. They missed I think in the first half on the right side. They came back to it. They got by us again for the big play at the end of the game. They took a shot to Tutu, who we know can run, and that's what they're going to do with them. And I think one time we had a big PI, but those are normal coverages, what we've been doing for years.
How worried are you about Hargrave and the triceps?
I don't really know yet. Always when you hear triceps, you think tears and stuff, but from what they told me, they felt it was more a contusion and stuff, so that's better news. So we'll see, though.
Was Bosa close? Did you have to make a decision today, or was that always just kind of keep an eye on him?
No, he was good. Yeah.
Is there a part of you that maybe anticipated it would be incredibly tough, considering what you have to do, the focus you need, in a season like this coming out of Super Bowl, maybe see that maybe a little bit harder?
No, I didn't really think in those terms. I mean, you can think about that stuff in the off season, but once you get to these games, it's just about that week. And I knew today would be a big challenge. Anytime that a team is 0-2 and a team that does get embarrassed like they did the week before just on the scoreboard, and we talked about it all week, how we were going to get their best shot, and our goal was to give them no hope, to come out strong and kind of take that away. And it seemed like we started out with that plan pretty well, and once that fake punt happened and they got back in, it was much more of a battle.
Like that, are you in safety in punt coverage, or was that not called?
Yeah, that's we were expecting a fake punt there, and they still got our edge.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, guys.
We had to wait till the very end, but there it was. Were you expecting a fake punt there? Yeah, we were expecting a fake punt, but they still got our edge. How? How does that happen? All right, guys. Hey, the one thing we can't do.
Oh, no.
I just don't understand. In that spot, if you're expecting a fake punt,
just call a normal defense.
Run your defense out there. Go.
Don't send anyone back to return the punt.
Yeah, you're getting the ball.
If they punted and they down it at the 1, congratulations to the Rams. Good work.
The Seahawks had a 73-yard fake punt touchdown against the Niners at Levi Stadium a couple years back. It was Travis Homer scored it.
Yeah, I remember.
And in that spot, because they were deep in their own territory, it's like, man, that's a gutsy spot to call a fake punt. Unexpected. Good work by Pete Carroll and staff. Sean McVay, everybody knew apparently that they were going to fake that, and they still executed? I don't understand how that happens. That can't...
okay,
who The point of a fake
Whose
punt.
head's got to roll, dog?
The point of a fake punt is because you're trying to catch the defense off guard. If the defense knows a fake punt's coming, you know what's better to call? An actual passing play with Matthew Stafford on the field.
Right.
Like, the Rams called the fake punt because they wanted to catch the Niners off guard, because their thought is, if we don't catch the Niners off guard, we're not going to get it.
Yes.
Apparently, they did not catch the Niners off guard, but they still got it.
Didn't matter.
They just killed the entire point of a fake punt. Like, but it didn't matter.
They're going to win like 6 games this year. Go ahead. Sorry.
That feels like what's happening. Where San Francisco knows what's coming. Oh, they're running bunches? Let's not run press coverage. Same thing happened against the Vikings as it happened today. And I get it. Fans can see from the television broadcast, oh, that reminds me of this play last week or that play 2 weeks ago. I totally get that. But when the head coach knows, hey, they're probably going to run a fake punt, let's put something out there to stop it. If they get it, we at least tried our best. Kyle said, it's fine. Let it happen, essentially. How is that okay? I mean, it's not, obviously, but how is that excusable, if you will?
How many times is special teams going to have to kill the 49ers before Kyle Shanahan cares about it?
That includes the playoffs.
It's happened so many times. And and it's clearly a thing where he goes, as long as I don't have to care about that, then that phase doesn't matter.
Like, the Niners special teams are at a point where, as long as it doesn't bury the Niners in a singular game, I feel like it's a win. The Niners almost never get the major positive game-changing play for them, like positive game-changing play for them. Like, when was the last time the Niners had a major special teams play go their way?
The 2021 divisional playoffs against the Packers, they had a blocked field goal on the blocked punt for a touchdown. But that was only because Green Bay was like the only team in the league with worse special teams than the Niners.
Like, as long as they come out even and no one makes a great special teams play against them, or they don't melt down and get a blocked punt, a punt blocked like last week, as long as that doesn't happen, you feel like you're good. You're good if you're the Niners, because generally speaking, the only major special teams plays that happens are ones that drastically kill your chance to win a football game.
Yeah. Yes.
That's about it.
And somehow they can't get it right. They have, it feels like a couple times a year, big kick return. A couple times a year, big punt return, including today. The one thing you can't do in this spot is allow a big punt return. Oh, big punt return.
Plus a missed field goal.
How does that, how do these things happen? We had a caller a while back talk about situational football. That to me is all situational, and they just can never get it right.
It feels like Kyle Shanahan is saying, if I never have to rely on it, I'll just score more points. I'll have my defense stop the opposing offense, which is great. You used to be able to do that, but this year you can't do that. And unfortunately, even when you could, special teams cost you come playoff time. It cost you against Seattle in Seattle, the Trenton Cannon game where you got injured early and you lost that game because you just couldn't stop a punt or a fake punt. Kick returns. This team hasn't had a good kick returner since Ted Ginn. Robbie Gould's been gone for a year, now 2 years. They can't make 50-yard field goals since you had David Akers and Green Bay making 63-yarders off the goalpost. You can't tackle when you sign Oren Burks and George Odom and you get Ray McLeod and you toss money, quote unquote. You toss $5 million at it and said, fix it. You bring in Brian Schneider, who has kind of made the unit worse. You fire Steve Wilkes, but not Brian Schneider?
Crazy.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, rough. Bad special teams day, bad defensive day. I thought the offense for the most part was good, but not good enough apparently to make up for the bad days of the special teams, and the defense. Niners lose by a final score of 27-24. All right, we got one more segment to get through here on Best of the Game, or pardon me, on Overtime. Before we do wrap things up, we will hand out game balls. I'm not sure who's going to get game balls.
I've got ideas
on defense. We will figure something out. Stay tuned as we try to twist this in any sort of positive way. Best of luck to us, because that's going to be difficult to do. One final segment to get to as overtime continues. Niners fall to the Rams 27-24. More OT next.
Did you know that most people wait 6 or 7 years before they buy a new TV? That's a lot of time in front of one TV. So why not get one of the best sets for the next 7 years, like one of the top-rated Samsung, LG, or Sony models? Too expensive? What if you could get up to $1,000 trade-in for your old set?
touchdowns today, but unfortunately for the Niners, it comes in a losing effort. 27-24 was the final score. Mark Randy, Kyle Madsen, Sterling Bennett with you. Guys, how about this statistic? With 11 receptions, 175 yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns, Juwan Jennings becomes just the second player in Niners franchise history to register 10 or more catches, 150 or more receiving yards, and 3 or more receiving touchdowns in a single game.
Dang.
Joining, it's the obvious one, Jerry Rice, who's involved in every single one of these crazy statistics. But the fact that he's only the second Niner receiver ever to put up those numbers is absolutely wild. He joins Jerry Rice there. By the way, Jerry Rice did it 3 different times, including one time where he had 14 catches for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Crazy.
Juwan Jennings also becomes the first Niner wide receiver to have 3 or more receiving touchdowns in a game since Terrell Owens did it back in 2001. The keynote there is wide receiver because George Kittle did just do it last year against the Dallas Cowboys nearly a year ago. In a couple of weeks, it will be exactly a year ago. But Juwan Jennings, a historic day to be up there with that company, T.O., and Jerry Rice, the best receiver to ever play the game, and another Hall of Fame wide receiver. Juwan Jennings absolutely put together an incredible performance. But unfortunately for him, this is going to be remembered as the game the Niners choked away a 10-point fourth quarter lead against the Rams, not the game where Juwan Jennings introduced himself.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah.
He had more touchdowns today than he had in his previous 31 games combined. That's crazy. Like that's totally nuts. 2 seasons and then the first couple games of this season. Can I real quick before we get to talking about how good Juwan Jennings was?
Go ahead.
I was thinking about this at the break and the whole Kyle Shanahan. We were expecting a fake punt thing there. Brian Schneider's not the special teams coach by next Sunday. A head coach saying that instead of being like, oh, it's just doing the normal coach thing. They made a good play and, we got to execute and blah, 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 blah. The fact that he was like, we were expecting a fake punt and they just got the edge. Like that to me is a head coach who's fed up with a special teams coordinator. Anyway.
So this is Brian Schneider's get out of the booth and on the field game.
I think this is a Brian Schneider's get out of Santa Clara and literally go anywhere else kind of game.
Wow, dude.
I'm dead serious.
So how does that happen? If Kyle Shanahan saying we knew that the fake punt was coming, but you still just called your normal punt return play?
So that's what happened, I guess.
If that is what happened, then yes, Brian Schneider should not be coordinating the special teams group going forward.
There's been too many things going wrong in that phase. We were just talking about it last segment. There are just so many little things that you can point to over the years, and particularly the last couple of years, where it's like, man, how do you have the fake punt, your kicker's missing field goals, you're blowing the punt coverage at the end of the game. Like this is a phase that Kyle Shanahan wants to not have to worry about. He wants to kick the ball out of the end zone on kickoffs, and he wants to just take the ball and hold on to the ball on kickoff returns. And he wants to not worry about his field goal kicker. He wants to be really confident calling on his field goal kicker to make kicks. And that's it. He doesn't need it for big plays. He just wants it to be a part of the game that happens and then get the offense or defense on the field. And they can't do that.
It's like one thing for a kicker to miss kicks. That's like less on the special teams coordinator, and it's just on the kicker. Like, okay, you missed one. That's unfortunate. But even just the last 2 weeks, you have a punt that's blocked.
Yep. Your
punter, I don't know, has a brain fart, doesn't even decide to touch the guy who recovered the punt, so he gains an extra 20 yards. You have Deebo Samuel bringing the ball 5 yards deep into the end zone out, when if you just take a knee in the end zone, you get it out to the 30-yard line.
Yep.
You don't even get to the 15. Plus, there was a penalty on that return. You're backed up even further. You have Ronnie Bell muffing the punt, which ultimately didn't turn into a turnover, and maybe that's more in the vein.
Cowing.
You're right. Sorry. Cowing, muffing that punt. Maybe that's more in the vein of a kicker missing a kick. Sometimes that just happens. Unfortunate, but hard to blame that, I suppose, on a special teams coordinator. But then today, you're right. You have the terrible coverage on the punt return in a moment where you can't allow that to happen. It's on the special teams coordinator to say, hey, Mitch, boot this out of bounds.
Yep, kick it out of bounds.
Kick it out of bounds, like whatever. What?
Kick it off the scoreboard so he has a fair catch.
Don't put it in play. Just don't put it in play. And then you have, as you're talking about, this conundrum with the fake punt where apparently the Niners knew it was coming but couldn't do anything about it. If all of that is 100% true and there's no subterfuge going on here, it would seem like mismanagement if the Niners were just like okay with this continuing forward.
Yeah. I don't think Brian Schneider's going to be with them for much longer.
You agree, Sterling?
He shouldn't have been here this year. Shouldn't have been here last year. I mean, why wait 3 games into the season when it's not like this hasn't happened before?
Right.
You can't ride the coattails of an NFC or divisional round game in Green Bay because Hufanga got his hands up and Jordan Willis did a job once, right? Like, this has been happening for regular season games and playoff games, and because it hasn't cost you one of those games, it's like, oh, whatever, we'll put that in the corner, let it sit there, and we'll be okay with it, not in my eyesight, not in my peripheral. Well, now it's cost you 2 games this year. Now, in that same conversation, Brian Schneider also called Jake Moody's workout pre-draft the perfect workout, which Jake Moody could be great. We don't know. Time will tell, obviously, but that's a 3rd-round pick right there. That's the 3rd highest drafted kicker since 2004. These are decisions that Brian Schneider is responsible for. So if you weren't going to fire him after Jake Moody being drafted, the constant special teams blunders that have hurt you in multiple big games, albeit haven't cost you the game because your offense is so good and your defense is just so stout, I have a hard time believing Kyle Shanahan might say, I'm done after a Week 3 loss against the Rams.
Yep.
He should. I don't think he will.
Yeah. I think the way Shanahan might view that is, well, if I fire him now, I'm admitting to a mistake I just made a couple of months ago, and I don't want to admit to that mistake. I'm going to try to write it out, and hopefully that it gets better. But it might not be getting better.
Yeah, it happened last year too.
It happened last year too. I mean, this is the conversation. Maybe this is a little bit more aggressive around Brian Schneider versus how it was around Steve Wilkes last year. But Shanahan very publicly threw his defensive coordinator under the bus in the first half of last season. What was that? That was week 7. They went 5-0, lost 1, and then lost to Minnesota on Monday night. Week 7, Shanahan threw his defensive coordinator under the bus, kept him all season long, and then, as you pointed out earlier, Sterling, fired him a day after the Super Bowl loss.
Yeah.
He probably knew the whole time that was going to happen. Unless they win the Super Bowl, they still might fire him.
Maybe. Like, given how everything kind of went down there, I think there was just a legitimate disconnect in what their defense was supposed to look like.
Shanahan knew probably he was going to fire him the whole time, and he probably might be feeling the same way about Brian Schneider, but maybe he's not willing to pull the trigger week 3 of the regular season.
Shout out to the fellow sickos listening, by the way, who are like, yeah, special teams coordinator. Yeah. But it's so much harder. It's so much harder to fire your defensive coordinator and hire a new one.
Yes.
In season, or bring in an interim one in season. Whereas, like, with special teams, I'm guessing Kyle Shanahan's like, whoever the assistant special teams coordinator is, you're up. Figure out how to cover a punt. Job's on you. Goodbye. Like that I think I can see happening.
Yeah. All right. 888-957-9570. A couple more calls to get to. Low and Big Al. We'll close out with you, and then we got to hand out game balls. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to try our best. Up next is Low, who's in San Leandro. Low, how you feeling after this Niner loss?
This is extremely embarrassing right here. Okay? The Rams are in our division. We've been beating them twice a year for the last, I don't know how many seasons. I believe that season they went to the Super Bowl. We beat them twice in that regular season. That's number one. Number two, I'm sick and tired of Kyle Shanahan. Okay? He's had the 49ers in 2 Super Bowls that we were in a position to win. Could have and should have won. And then his stupid post-game comments to make matters worse. I still remember his post-game comments after the Super Bowl about not using McCaffrey like he should have. And speaking about special teams, how about Ray in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, you're right, Lo.
Totally.
I mean, there was a muff punt in the Super Bowl that cost you there as well.
Huge. Yeah.
That might be more on an individual player versus anything else, but it's a play that I think signals a larger overall trend, which is special teams have had a net major negative impact on the Niners over the course of the last 4 or 5 years.
Scarred from special teams mishaps.
I mean, don't even remind me of the NFC Championship game against the Giants.
Well, you brought it up, not me.
Kyle Williams.
I'm hey, all right. I'm of the here. I'm gonna use 20 seconds of tangent here.
Yeah.
Don't have a punt returner. This is a completely separate thing. This is just a personal pet peeve. Don't have a punt returner. You're getting the ball. Just try and block it. Send 11 every time.
Oh,
try and block it.
They're gonna rough the kicker, and you know they're gonna rough. Automatic first down. It's gonna happen.
Probably. Anyways,
I like the aside. I think I remember reading something Bill Walsh back in the day saying that the best strategy for punt returns is to just go back, have someone go back there and return it, or not return it, just catch it. Fair catch every single time.
Yeah.
Just go back and catch it.
Yeah.
Don't even think about trying to move.
Yep.
Just fair catch. That's it. We'll take it wherever we catch it. If it goes over our head, we plant our feet at the 10. If it's over our head, let it bounce. Maybe it goes into the end zone. That's all you do. Never, ever try to return a punt.
Yep.
If the Niners believe that, maybe.
The amount of great punt returns that happen, not against the 49ers apparently, the amount of great punt returns that happen pales in comparison to the amount of disasters that happen on punt returns.
Yes. You'd come out on a positive, on the positive side if you just didn't try to gain any yards on any punt returns.
Unless you're facing the Niners, in which case trying to return every punt because you're going to break one.
Every single one.
But in this instance, you are the Niners. So if my math checks out, you're never going to be facing the Niners.
Gross.
So you should just call a fair catch every single time. Okay, last call to get to. Then we'll hand out game balls. Big Al's in Chico. The little note here says Big Al is disgusted with the 49ers.
Hell
Big
yeah.
Al, we feel you. Take us home, Big Al.
Get him,
What do you
Al.
think of this Niner team?
Okay, I have a couple things to talk about.
Yes.
A great show, by the way, guys.
Thanks.
Hey,
Thank you.
it seems like I totally agree with you guys about the special teams. That it seems like almost every special teams play that happens, I'm like cringing. When Moody comes out, I'm just have no faith in the guy at all. Our third round draft pick, right? And also, I don't know why Shanahan has this, ever since the beginning of his coaching career, when things are going great in the running game, why don't you just stick with it? I think that Mason could have just kept going. We were up by 7 and we could have just ran it down their throats. Me and my friends were at a bar in Chico, and we were like, we got this. And all of a sudden, he tries to be cute, stuff like that. He's done it so many times in his career, like even in the Atlanta, New England game. Run the ball. Run it. Waste some clock. I mean, I just don't get this guy's offensive, plan when he's up. I mean, do you guys agree?
Big Al, I think a lot of Niner fans are in agreement with you. I have an entirely differing opinion on what happened in that Super Bowl when he was the OC for the Falcons, and I think it has almost no bearing on any conversation about Shanahan now. There was so much other stuff that happened in that game, and if you really go through the play-by-play, I don't think Shanahan really did much wrong there. But I'll be the first to admit that I, generally speaking, always, every single week, I find something I dislike with how Kyle Shanahan handled the clock. He is always so much more comfortable playing it safe and being conservative as opposed to being aggressive when it comes to clock management. It really frustrates me. And when you have, maybe today is a little bit of a different example because you didn't have McCaffrey and Debo and Kittle, but take the team last year, for example, when you have all pros everywhere, be aggressive. maximize the number of possessions that you have, the number of plays that you run. You have better offensive talent than anybody else in the league. So maybe today isn't the best example of that because they were down 3 of their top guys. But overall, I think I'm with Big Al, guys. Shanahan's clock management has always been a point of contention for me. Sure. And it feels like he's not maximizing what this offense can be. He could get a little bit more out of him if he was just at times a little bit more aggressive with how he used the clock and how he used his timeouts and all of that.
I think this goes back to something we talked about earlier, where teams know, dang, we cannot stop the run right now. But if we get in this defensive personnel, they're going to throw it. The Chiefs knew in the Super Bowl in 2019, when Terrell Suggs was on the field, that the Niners were going to throw it because they were going to try and get George Kittle matched up against Terrell Suggs because Terrell Suggs was on the field to stop the run. That was it. So the Niners went, yep, we're going to throw it, even though everybody knew that the Chiefs weren't going to stop Raheem Mostert. And I think that is, again, one of the flaws with how Kyle Shanahan views football is, well, hey, they're in this personnel grouping. Well, if we're in this personnel grouping and we execute perfectly, then we'll be able to throw the football. But it's like, that's what the defense wants. They want you to throw it. They want to attack your right tackle that they don't think is very good. They want to attack your inexperienced right guard. They want to force Brock Purdy to run around and have to throw it to Ronnie Bell or whoever, or scramble for a yard. Like, that's what teams want. So I agree with Big Al in a sense. I think Kyle Shanahan's game management can definitely be shoddy, especially when they're up.
Which makes it more shocking, the fact that we can sit back and realize, hey, Kyle's had these problems since at least 2016, maybe. Mm-hmm. And we can notice them. And I get, Shanahan's a smart guy. He knows much more than we do and everything. But you talk to any Niner fan, the common phrase I hear is, Shanahan is too smart for his own good. And he outsmarts himself. He's like, I got him right where I want him. 3 and out, boom, now you're losing. Mm-hmm. Because he passes the ball 3 times in a row. Now, Purdy was really effective in this game. Jennings was stellar. They were moving the ball by throwing the football in this game. Mm-hmm. Purdy was phenomenal. Like they were, all their touchdowns were through the air for a reason. It's a bad Rams secondary. But if all the opposing team has to do is change personnel to force Shanahan to go, I got to change the entire game plan. I'll start running the football for 5 yards a pop, which will give you a first down in 2 plays. And if not, you can go for it on 4th down and still get a first down. Then that's an internal issue that has never been addressed through, I don't know, what is this now? His 8th year as a head coach and his probably 12th year as a play caller. Like, that's not going away. That's not changing this year. Not changing in week 4. This is who Kyle is. This is who he's going to be probably forever. Unless something drastic happens, which you'd think losing 2 Super Bowls would be that, and it still hasn't changed.
Yeah. So it's his offense, his play calling. He, I guess, maybe specifically is easily manipulated. Easily manipulated, if I can spit it out.
It seems that way. The problem with it specifically today, if the Niners execute in the passing game,
it doesn't matter.
Ronnie Bell makes
that catch, it doesn't matter.
If Ronnie Bell isn't on the field and it's Chris Conley or Jacob Cowing or whoever like that. Or
maybe if it's Brandon Ayuk. Maybe he doesn't catch it. But.
Sure. But I didn't think the play calling was necessarily the problem for me today.
Yeah. No, on the Ronnie Bell one, his quarterback found an open receiver down the field, and the quarterback put it right where his receiver could catch it, and the receiver just didn't make a play. Maybe it's similar to the special teams conversation about a kicker happens to miss a kick. A player happens to drop a pass. And it's not to blame the play caller for that, not to blame the quarterback for that. It's just simply the receiver didn't make a play on that one play, and it's unfortunate because it's a reason why you ended up losing the game. Okay, a few minutes to go here in overtime on 95-7 the game. The Niners fall 27-24. We got to hand out game balls. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to find 3 Niners on offense and defense in this one, but we will try our best. Kyle, why don't you start? Give out game ball number 1 for the Niners offense.
Shout out to Brock Purdy, man.
Okay.
I'm going to start there.
One of 2 obvious ones.
I had a lot of questions about how he would handle himself in this game today, and I thought he was very, very good. He made a ton of money throws. I believe it's 6 drops out of his 8 incompletions. Shout out to Brock Purdy. He was stellar.
Yeah, he was good. Sterling, offensive game ball number 2.
Should I take the obvious one, or should I go with the Los Angeles Ram, who kind of equaled how great the Niners one was today?
It's up to you.
I'll give you the gimme. How about Kyren Williams today? He had 3 touchdowns on his own. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, over 111 yards altogether on 26 touches. Juwan Jennings, who I'm sure Mark will pick, was phenomenal. Kyren Williams was also really good for the Rams. That Niners defensive line looked exhausted early in the third quarter. And Kyren Williams, again, he wasn't having a great game on the ground in regards to yards per carry, 3.7, still was able to get it done in pivotal moments for the Rams over and over and over again. So a 3-touchdown day for Kyren Williams gets the job done.
Yeah, I'm playing against him in fantasy and did not need that. Did not need that.
I had Juwan Jennings today, so I was pretty happy.
There you go.
Nice.
Congratulations. Yeah, Juwan Jennings will be my game ball of the week for this one. 12 targets. He turned those 12 targets into 11 catches. Whenever he was targeted, he caught it just about every single time. 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's in company with Jerry Rice and T.O., 2 of the greatest receivers to ever play this game. 2 of the greatest, if not the 2 greatest wide receivers to ever play in this historic organization. Juwan Jennings was awesome in this one, and he gets my game ball. 12 targets, 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Okay, on to the defensive side of the football. This is also a difficult one to go through. The Niners did have 3 sacks in this game, 1 by Hargrave, 1 by Malik Collins, and 1 by, I am absolutely going to butcher this last name. Why don't you help me out, Kyle?
Aquanu.
Sam Aquanu. His first career full sack. Now has a sack and a half in his NFL career. He was elevated from the practice squad because the Niners were uncertain if Bosa was going to go. Bosa did go, but Sam Aquanu did get in and registered a sack. But I will go my defensive game ball. I'll go with Talanoa Hufanga.
Oh, yeah.
He came back, made his 2024 debut, 7 tackles. And as we talked about earlier, maybe the bar for getting a game ball for the defense today is not making a back-breaking mistake. My first watch through the game, I'll go back and watch it for a second time tonight. But my first watch of the game, not a back-breaking mistake for Talanoa Hufanga. I know that's a low bar to clear, but for me, today that's enough to get a defensive game ball. Sterling, what about you?
Yeah, there's not many, unfortunately. I know we talked about safeties a lot in this game. I will take the counterpart to Hufanga, Jair Brown.
Okay.
It wasn't a great game by all intents and purposes, but first drive of the second half for the Rams, he comes out, gets a big 3rd and 5 stop, knocks the ball out of Colby Parkinson's hands. Yeah. I thought, again, it wasn't a great game by any means, but you look at what he did. He had 4 total tackles, 2 pass deflections, again, that big 3rd down stop. Gave San Francisco an opportunity, which inevitably put up another touchdown, gave them a 2-score lead. So I'll give it to Jair Brown in this one.
Like it. Good pick. Bring us home, Kyle. What do you got?
Dude, shout out to Sam Okuwanu, man.
Yeah.
First career full sack. I didn't think he was gonna play when Nick Bosa was healthy.
Yeah, me neither.
I thought he got called up just in case.
Yeah.
But no, he got in the game. He came up with a sack. That was his only tackle. Shout out to Sam Okuwanu, man.
Okay. Congratulations, Sam. A historic day for him. His first career full sack. He had a half a sack going in, now a sack and a half under his belt in the NFL. But unfortunately, it wasn't a losing effort for the 49ers as they fall. Final score 27-24. They have a chance to get back to 500 when they take on the New England Patriots in week number 4. Guys, all I will say is if that is also a loss, yikes.
No show for me if that one's a loss.
Yikes.
I'm
Oh,
out
my God. We got a lot riding on that game, no doubt. Until then, looking forward to it. Hopefully we have a win to celebrate. You weren't here with us last week, Kyle, but Sterling and I thought maybe you were the Niners' good luck charm because you were here week 1, they won. You were not here week 2, they lost. You come back week 3 and they lost, so throw that out the window. You're not the good luck charm. None of us are, apparently.
I basked in the glow for a week, for sure.
Congratulations. All right, that'll do it. So for us here today, we'll be back next week. Niners and Patriots a week from today, and we got you covered on overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Okay, for Kyle Madsen, for Sterling Bennett, for Carter behind the glass, for our guy Cam cutting all the sound up behind the scenes. Shout out to all of our listeners and callers as well. My name is Mark Randy signing off. Niners fall to the Rams 27-24. Make sure you're locked in all day tomorrow to 95.7 The Game. You are not going to want to miss it. Thanks for tuning in and have a good night.
Don't miss the Lazy Boy trade-in event. For a limited time, save 20% on everything store-wide.